I would call to order the regular meeting of the Westmont, Village of Westmont Planning and Zoning Commission for Wednesday, December 13th. May we have a roll call, please?
Chairman Carmichael,
Present.
Mr. Lavoy,
Here.
Mr. Thomas is here, Mr. Scales,
Here.
Ms. Peterson.
Here.
Okay. That it?
Yep.
All right, we have a quorum. Please rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And while you're standing, anyone who testifies before this commission has to be sworn in, so please raise your right hand and swear that any and all testimony you make will be the truth, the whole truth, nothing but, so help you God. Thank you. Couple of reminders. First, please put your phones and electronic devices on silence. And I saw a lot of you signing in. We have sign-in sheets at the podium and out in the hallway, but again, anyone who testifies has to be signed in with their name and contact information. Okay, first item is the approval of the minutes from the November 8, 2023 regular meeting. Do I have a motion to approve?
Motion, Scales.
Second, Peterson.
I have a motion, a second. Discussion on the minutes? Seeing none, roll call, please.
Chairman Carmichael,
Yes.
Mr. Lavoy,
Yes.
Mr. Thomas says yes, Mr. Scales,
Yes.
Ms. Peterson.
Yes.
Okay. Good. Roll it so you call me last.
Okay.
Next is just a review of our public hearing procedure. First, for each agenda item, the petitioner or applicant will be introduced and then come forward and present his or her request, and then followed by our village staff comments, and then the public gets to ask questions or make comments to the applicant, and the applicant then can respond to them. And please, whenever you're addressing with questions or comments, one, be at the podium to speak into the microphone, and secondly, you're making, you're addressing your comments to the board, not back to the audience or to the petitioner back and forth. We don't want conversations in here. This is a board action. And then after the public comments, then the board weighs in with their comments and questions, and finally a vote. We have the village attorney with us, and he will keep us straight at all times. All right, and just to point out, you're probably aware, but the vote, all the votes of this commission are a recommendation to the village board. The village board has the final say-so on any and all of these requests. Okay, we have no old business on the agenda tonight. We'll go straight to the new business. First is public hearing PZC 020-2023. 4 requests from Arcad Development Limited Liability Corporation regarding the property at 329 East 56th Street in Westmont for the following. First, a map amendment request to rezone from R1 Single Family Detached Residence District to R3 Single Family Detached Residence District. Secondly, a zoning ordinance variance request to allow for the construction of new homes within a required front yard setback in the R3 Single Family Detached Residence District. Third, Westmont Land Development Ordinance variance request to allow the establishment of 2 lots of a substandard lot depth. And finally, a preliminary plat of subdivision to subdivide 1 lot into 2. Good evening, sir.
Good evening. Thank you for your time. Thank you for allowing me to give this presentation. Today, the parcel that we're...
Name, sir?
My name is Demetrius Panos. So the project, the parcel that we're talking about today is 329 56th Street. As I've said, my name is Demetrius Panos. I'm the president of P Custom Homes, also the president of Arcad Development. I'm a licensed structural engineer, a licensed professional engineer. I've been developing in construction and real estate for about 25 years. I've also developed several projects here in Westmont. So the first one that I just kind of want to talk about is just across the tracks on 224, 226 Burlington. This is a duplex townhouse project with 3 bedrooms and 2.5 baths. The next project we developed was at 514 64th Street. This is a 3,650 square foot house, 5 bedrooms, 4 baths. Adjacent to that, we developed a project called 516 64th Street, a little bit bigger, 3,800 square feet, 5 bedrooms, 4 baths. It was like a modern farmhouse. So what do we purchase from the village of Westmont? So about a year ago, we purchased this property that was at 329 56th Street. As you can see from the pictures, it was quite the eyesore. So this is another picture. As you can kind of see, kind of had a broken down fence, overgrown vegetation. So it was a little bit of a village eyesore. That's a picture of the interior of the property that we bought. So what did we do? So we purchased it a little over a year ago, and in 2 weeks, we turned off all the utilities. We cleared the site from the overgrown shrubs, demolished the existing building. We helped the village get rid of an eyesore. I know that in the neighborhood that it was a substantial problem the way that it was. It was uninhabitable. It was a eyesore. It was dangerous for the village. We spent about $40,000 to take care of all these items. So what are we requesting today? Today we're requesting 3 items. We're requesting a variance from the required 35-foot back front setback. We're requesting a variance for the required lot depth, which is 125 feet, and a request for rezoning from R1 to R3. So the first variance that we're requesting is the 35-foot setback. So we're requesting it from 35 to 25 feet. As you can kind of see, along the court, along Ryan Court, most of the setbacks, or the setbacks are 25 feet. So we're requesting something that is common in that area. The proposed project has both houses facing Ryan Court. Facing the lots to Ryan Court also creates the need to have the house closer to the street with the front yard setback variance that we're requesting. However, this, as I've mentioned, matches the setbacks along Ryan Court, the development that's there. The original house that we had purchased that you've seen in the previous pictures faced 56th Street, and it had a large rear yard. But now, the way that our society is, there's a demand for homes with smaller yards and less maintenance. So that's why we're trying to get these 2 houses on this one lot. So the other variance that we're requesting is the depth of the lot. So this current lot, or the 2 lots, once we subdivided, would be 125 foot wide by 71 foot depth. So it's a little semantics. We kind of, the way, since we're facing Ryan Court, the depth is 71 feet. But we do have 125 foot width. So although the new lots meet minimums, if the 2 homes face north-south, it is preferred for us to face Ryan Court. This puts a majority of the outdoor space on the side of the house, which is not uncommon for corner lots. So this is why we kind of need to ask for the lot depth variance. And then also, the third thing that we're requesting is we're requesting a zoning from R1 to R3. As you can kind of see, this is 329 in this kind of like light green shade. As you can see, everything around it is R3. So we would basically be changing the zoning from something that's a little bit more standard in the area. So we've done preliminary engineering drawings. Currently on the site, there's no stormwater facility on the property right now. This development would construct facilities for both lots, ensuring runoff is the same, if not better than the current conditions. So as you can kind of see here, we've accounted for the detention. This is just a rendering of something that we're considering a proposed construction for the 2 lots. So this is kind of a little bit of the look that we're kind of thinking. It's kind of like a 2,800 square foot home for both lots. And that's all I have. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Staff comments, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So I'll reiterate and just kind of pick up a few little details that the petitioner, just to clarify some of the requests. And I'll try to go in the logical progression, and that is, first, there's a rezoning request before you. So this is currently zoned R1. The property, when properties used to be annexed into the village, especially force annexed, they always are brought in at R1, which is our largest lot zoning district. There's typically no purpose in making them R1, that basically, when you annex something in, you always annex it with the least intrusive zoning district, and that's our largest lots residential. But as the petition illustrated, there is R3 zoning all around this property, although the two properties just to the west are also still zoned R1, and actually, I think one of those properties is owned by the Park District. So the request is to rezone to R3. R3 is what sets those minimum lot size standards. If we were talking about R1, it's a much bigger lot, it's a much wider lot that needs to exist in those. So if the petitioner wishes to subdivide into smaller lots, the first is to get into the more correct residential districts. So in this case, R3, there is adjacent R3. The second is constructing homes in the front yard setback. So you heard the petitioner say that some of the constraints are that they wish to front the homes to Ryan Court. So the standard lot in an R3 is 7,800 square feet, 60 feet wide, and 125 feet deep. If he was proposing homes on these lots and they face north to 56th and south to the cul-de-sac on Ryan, then you could meet the setbacks and the lot depth much better. He wishes to propose the homes facing Ryan Court because it's a more private, it's a less traveled street, and he feels that makes a more desirable home. So when you do that, we change what our consideration of what is the front. And in this case, now the front becomes Ryan Court, which means that they're only about 71 feet deep, and they're 125 foot wide. So what happens is your backyard basically becomes your side yard. So you will see that these proposals have side yards on both the north of the north property and on the south property. So that is one of the requests that are before us. Since it is such a narrow depth, the petitioner is asking for a variance to the front yard setback of 25 feet when 35 feet is required. So one of the things you always want to look at when a variance is requested is it precedent setting in the immediate locale? And when Ryan Court developed, that developer developed all the homes at 25 feet. So there is a similar setback within the vicinity of this. Already touched upon was lots of a substandard lot depth. So this is actually an Appendix B variance, so it's a little bit different in terms of the way that staff classifies the variance. It doesn't have to meet the strict standards of the findings of fact for an Appendix A variance. However, it still does need to show uniqueness and precedent. So in this case, it's the turning of the houses that cause the uniqueness in this situation. And then finally, the last thing that is being requested before here is we approve all preliminary plats of subdivision. So to subdivide into two properties, it's a two-step process. The first is a preliminary plat in which the petitioner is requested to show that these lots can support the development. So one of the plans in your staff report and one that he had showed here was the anticipated area of the stormwater detention. In a lot of cases when we see these, this is a depressed area at the back side of someone's yard, and that's where the water collects. In this case, they are actually proposing that all of that is underground so that they get usable yard space up above it, and that the stormwater is underground. And the requirement of our stormwater always kicks in with the subdivision, and then the requirement is that you're not exacerbating or making the runoff any worse. In fact, you are improving it. And I think I've covered all of those. There's a lot of bits of information I can elaborate on, but because we have a lot of items on the schedule, I'll stop there and just answer questions as you have them.
Okay, thank you. Okay, from the public, who would like to weigh in on this issue? Sir, good evening.
Should I go up to a microphone?
Yeah, please come to the podium.
Hello, my name is Alan Hank. I live at 525 Ryan Court, which is part of the Fairfield subdivision. I have a few questions and a few comments. One of the things that is different about this is, like they said, they're turning a side yard and doing it front to back. So the setback requirements are going to be butting up directly against Lynn's property back there. You're going to have almost no backyard before you reach her buildings there, which is highly unusual in the area. So this is an unusual request compared to anything else in the area, because we have 135-foot depths, but nothing's behind them. So that is unusual in that request. Second, I'd be interested to know about the underwater storms water, because we have had water issues in that area flowing downward. And are they going to connect to this, to the underwater, which is right by us, and having multiple houses? And that also connects, therefore, back into the wetlands, which is on Fairfield 4 property. So right now, if we are going to be adding water runoff that goes to something that's owned by the Fairfield 4 subdivision, I'd like to kind of know about that as well. We're also looking at, now that he's facing properties along Fairfield 4 subdivision, all the other lots that are there are part of the Fairfield 4 subdivision. They have a sign that indicates that. Now we have to ask ourselves, is he keeping up with the contemporary standards that exist for Fairfield 4? There's homeowners association requirements, there's building requirements, things like the type of materials that have to be used, the size of the houses, all sorts of other things that are going to be viewed, because now it's going to be viewed as one contiguous community. When it's facing 56th Street, it's not going to be viewed as part of the Fairfield 4 community. I think I also have, and I don't know whether this is something to be saved for the regular, there were several people who can't be here due to, and they asked that some letters be placed, at least given to you folks. It doesn't have to be read in now, because I know you've got a busy calendar. But I think this is unusual in the way in which the lots are configured, on the land in which it's configured, and the setbacks from other houses, which is very distinct and different from other communities. You're going to be butting up against other buildings. I think it's not unusual when you go in here, you just don't show the property, you show the suggested houses and how they fit onto it. And I think that was done purposefully, because you're going to see that you're going to be close to a lot of existing buildings and other lines. Let me see what else I have here. There's also some wetlands issues that are very close and abutting towards that property. And we actually own the slot of land that Fairfield 4 owns the slot of land that exists from the street to their property.
Say that again.
Fairfield 4 owns the land that exists from, we've maintained it for 20-some years. We've planted trees on it. We've done other things at our cost that goes from the street to the front part of his property along Ryan Court.
I'm not too sure if there's any questions, or it just seemed like a bunch of, some concerns, but.
Well,
I don't know if there's any
I
questions.
would love to see the size of the houses he's planning on putting on that property, how it would fit onto the parcels of property. How far would those houses be back from Lynn's. I know she's a little nervous about speaking here today. She's communicated with me her strong concern about having something so close. And I'd also like to know what type of property is going to be built on that, because it's going to be viewed as part of our subdivision, because all the rest of the homes on that entire subdivision belong to Fairfield 4, which has home and standard requirements. And I don't know if you've had an opportunity to look at the home and standard requirements of Fairfield 4.
Yeah, I'm not too sure, Joe, if we're requesting to be part of the subdivision, or,
Okay, first, we're going to put up one of the plans, so what you don't have access to is the staff reports that we have here. There is a plan that shows where he anticipates putting the houses. We're going to put it up on the overhead here. Yes, it's that one.
How many square feet is that?
we're looking at, like, 2,700.
Okay, because every single house that's part of that Fairfield subdivision is about, the average is about 3,700 or 3,500 square feet.
Scott,
Understand.
Can you zoom it in a bit more? Because you really only needed to zoom in on one of those houses. Yeah, just keep going in and it'll autofocus.
I don't know if there's like a highlighter, if you guys want me to highlight the,
I've got a red pen, does that help? Is there, do you have a highlighter?
a red pen.
Do you have a highlighter?
Yes, I have a red right here.
If you just want to outline the actual house, I think that'll help everyone.
I don't see the concerns. I would think, understood the concerns, I would definitely think we would both agree that whatever we're doing is definitely an improvement from what was there previously.
In some respects, yes, there was a lot of landscaping and other things that were on that property that unfortunately we'd love to. Could you show where Lynn's house is, the house that's behind that? Because you are 15 feet, you have 15 feet of a backyard.
To the east or to the?
That would be to the
or
west.
south?
Do we have anything that shows where her house is, her garage at her house? Because I think her house, her garage is almost on the lot line, and the house is right next, is just a little bit off that. I think you might be looking at 20 to 25 feet from buildings, other buildings.
So,
Which is
so
unusually-
I'll try to address that particularly for my commission. So if you see that Mr. Panos marked a red line, the adjacent home is actually encroaching a foot or two, and I don't know if it's the overhang or if it's the actual foundation. Actually encroaches, which means it is on the neighboring property. In fact, there is an easement that was granted to, between neighbors many years ago that said it was okay. Technically, the side yard setback for the neighbor's existing house should be, and Scott, correct me if I'm wrong, is it 10 feet for R1?
R1's 10 feet, I believe.
It would be 10 feet. So that house is not sitting where it should by 10 feet. It's 10 feet off. Now, you asked the question about how close can the new house be? It is a percentage of the lot width. So the lot width is 71 feet. That means that the rear yard setback needs to be roughly 15 feet. So where he showed the house is about 15 feet away. Just for comparison, if this house was facing north to 56th Street, that would be the side yard, and the side yard requirement is 6 feet. So it is an increase in setback required by turning the house. It's just, there is an existing situation where the house is still always going to be close because the neighbor's house is encroaching.
Yeah, that setback to the west, that west setback is within the requirements. We're not asking for a variance. And as Joe mentioned, if it was facing to 56th Street, it would be 6 feet instead of, it would be a lot more. And we would still be within our requirements, you know, if we wanted to put it.
And I guess they're allowed to go through our Fairfield Ford property for access to Ryan Court.
Well, we do, and there's a fee associated with that.
Well, I don't Ryan Court itself was dedicated to the village. It's a village-owned right-of-way, and so the sliver of property that is along Ryan Court that is next to where the fence was, where they're developing, that is right-of-way as well.
So even though it's going to be effectively their front yard, is Fairfield 4 still responsible for maintaining that land?
No.
So now we're taking that land off of Fairfield 4's plat survey and giving it to this developer?
Well, it's, although it might be shown in a plat of survey as the dedicated area, I don't believe it was ever legally required to be maintained.
We were told it was, we've been doing it for 22 years, and we planted trees on those properties at our own cost, and we've been paying landscaping on them for 22 years, and it shows on a plat of survey as being part of the Fairfield 4 subdivision.
Well-
So now we're taking that land and giving it to somebody else.
It was given to the village in the 90s when the development was built. The builder dedicated, so basically between the little sliver of green grass that is on the east side of Ryan Court, between the curb and the sidewalk, that is village right-of-way. And there are rules that says that when the property is adjacent, someone else's property, they should maintain it. So, but I don't know what the original agreement was with the builder for the stuff on the other side of Ryan Court, but it was dedicated to the village's right-of-way.
Okay, it was listed as part of the Fairfield 4 subdivision, and we were given a requirement to maintain it and that. So now we're talking about losing that as part of the Fairfield.
I disagree, I don't think he's losing it.
And the thing is, I wasn't around when it was done, but my best guess is the builder, when he built this, obligated the HOA to maintain it versus, so it was the builder that said, someone's going to have to do this. And when he built it, he passed that obligation on to Fairfield 4 HOA, would be my best guess.
Okay.
And if it makes you feel, you do not have to maintain it from here on out, we'll maintain it.
Yeah, okay.
I mean, I wasn't here prior to, but, yeah,
But
we can maintain it.
I'll just leave here some letter from one of the other neighbors that is directly adjacent to their property. On the southern end, there's a couple that lives there, and so their property would now abut their property on the southern end, or the Fairfield 4 little triangle of subdivision, which I guess they're not taking that little triangle piece. That's part of Fairfield 4, but I think most of the Fairfield, almost all the Fairfield 4 residents that I've spoken to have objected to the, I apologize, are not in favor of changing, particularly as it regards to the setback requirements, because you're going to be looking at really tight setback, front-to-back requirements, and it is going to become part of the Fairfield 4 subdivision, and it's not going to at all look similar in nature or size to the other houses that are on that property.
Just to clarify, it won't be part of the Fairfield.
It isn't
Excuse
part
me.
of it, but
Excuse me.
visually, it will, when you see a sign that says
Tenure.
Fairfield 4 and big sign,
just like
and
to
all
finish.
the other houses in that cul-de-sac belong to the Fairfield 4, and now he's changed his orientation from facing 56th Street to facing Ryan Court, it's going to be viewed as part of the same subdivision.
Yeah,
I just wanted to finish.
I would argue that I think that if it faced 56, you having a backyard, you have a side of the house, I would think that would be less pleasant to look at than the front of a brand-new construction house, but that's my opinion. I would think that it's more appealing for it to face Ryan Court for the people that are across the street. That's my opinion.
And if you'd like, maybe we can talk about that, and I could give him the Fairfield 4 requirements, we can talk
Yeah,
about.
we're not requesting to be part of the subdivision.
John, would you continue?
I was just going to say that it's not part of Fairfield 4, despite what the gentleman has stated. And as Joe pointed out, Fairfield 4 does have 25-foot front yard setbacks, like is proposed for this property. So
I agree. It's the
clarify
same.
that.
We're not requesting anything that isn't across the street.
a question for Joe. Joe, I forget, if they oriented the houses where one was facing north and one was facing south, would that necessitate other setback variances, provided the houses were appropriately sized, or access issues?
I don't know if I have an answer for that. On the surface, probably not. But I believe that initial designs, they were looking at still trying to put the houses at 25 feet. I can't remember. But so that, I think, based on how they wanted to design it, I think they would have been asking in that case for a side yard adjoining a street setback, which is the same requirement as the front yard.
So there'd be no difference to the Fairfield 4 subdivision owners as far as the setback goes, because it'd likely be 25 feet no matter how the houses were oriented.
I believe he would have requested the 25-foot setback as well. When staff looked at this and said, well, okay, what do we call the front and what do we call the side? We were making sure that, because there's a lot of rules and regulations about where you can put a shed and what kind of fencing you can have and such, so we were doing the most logical analysis based on if he wants to face the houses to the side, it's smarter to process the front yard setback variance and that lot depth variance, rather than calling the north and south property lines the fronts.
We've looked at this. We've spent a good amount of time back and forth with Joe. This has been a year project. We've looked at various options, various designs, various configurations, and where we've landed, you know, within professionals that we've hired, architects, civil engineers, surveyors, talking with Joe, we feel that it's best appealing for the village for it to face Ryan Court.
Is there anyone else from the public who would like to address this? Good evening, sir.
My name is Ravindran Tupala. I live in second property this side. That is close to
Your address is what?
313 East 56th Street.
Okay.
So in Westmont, this is a small village, and we have maybe, I don't know how many homes. There could be many corner lots which are odd lots. So every time somebody disposes it, this may be a distress sale. But then replacement with the 2 houses, 3 houses, then we will lose the character. I remember 20 years back when I moved to this house, there were ravens, there were coyotes, there were deers, butterflies, bees, I don't know. Now I see only cars going around at 60 mile speed in 56th Street. So my request to the board is, please maintain the purity of this place. I walk on a brick. This is a village made bricks for the entire Chicago, because Westmont means it's a mound. Between Chicago and St. Louis, this is the tallest place. Now, what happened to the mound? I have bricks retrieved from the Chicago Fair. They are more than 125 years. It is a piece of memory. So I wish we maintain the same status for some more years. It's a 100-year-old village. And board should take a view that, you know, there may be like 20 such odd plots in every corner, and you know, allow, smaller homes. I live in a small house, but we don't want, to see that, this is further divided. In some third world countries, one acre land, then 5 children, they make it small lots. Their children, grandchildren, all separate homes. They are like a small, pigeonholes. We want to be, in a, happy place to live with serenity. That's all. Thank you.
Yeah, I just want to reiterate, though, that
Thank you.
everything that we're requesting is typical in that area. The size of the lot is typical in the area, the setbacks is typical in the area, the zoning we're requesting is typical in the area. So we're not requesting anything that's atypical or different that's been, given to these other houses that are along Ryan Court. The lot sizes are about the same. I want to say our lot size is 71 by 125 that we're proposing. The lots that are on Ryan Court are 60 feet by 135 feet. So essentially, they're roughly the same size.
All right. Anyone else? Please.
Hi, my name is Lynn Verdaljak, and I live at 325 East 56th. I'm right next door, And I'm just kind of wondering, because of that, on my side of the house, now, is the 6-foot or 5-foot boundary, the property line, is that going to be, you have to have like 5 foot or 6 foot away from property lines, don't you?
It's a little bit more that we're proposing. Joe, do you know the exact dimension that it's going to be?
I believe he's placing his house
Is it 15?
like 14 and a half to 15 feet
think it's
away
15 feet.
from the property
Okay,
line.
so 15 feet. Now, that is going to be the space between my property and this very big home. So I won't see the eastern sky either, because I could have these two homes right there. And that's not a lot of property, though, the 15 feet.
Well, I think as Joe has mentioned, typically, it's, for a typical standard lot, the side setback is 6 foot. So if you have two houses side by side, that's going to be 12 feet. This is actually going to be a little bit more.
So I just want to clarify a little bit on setbacks. And it's a little confusing, so if I confuse you, just stop me and if there was no subdivision and someone just knocked the house down and wanted to build a new house next to your house, they could place that house 6 feet away from your property line, because in that case, it would be a side yard. So you have a front of your house, you have a back of your house, and two sides. In this case, there's two streets around this property, so there's a side yard that faces one street and then a front yard that faces another street. So if there was no subdivision and a new house was just facing 56th Street, it could be as close as 6 feet to the property line that abuts you. When you consider it a rear yard, we have bigger rear yard requirements, and that is, it's a percentage. It says, well, how deep is your yard? And it's supposed to be 20%. So the petitioner is proposing a 71-foot deep lot, so 20% of that is 14 and some odd feet, so roughly 15 feet. So he is proposing to put it within that required, to meet that setback, which is why he's not requesting a setback to that. So by turning the house and facing Ryan Court, our zoning requirements actually push the house about 9 feet farther away than it could be if it was facing 56th Street.
Okay, well,
If it faced 56th, if it faced 56th Street, and it isn't oriented as we were proposing, it would be closer to your house.
okay, how does that go with the easement then? Is that from the easement or from the property line?
It's from the property line.
It's from the property line. I guess that's it. And then the drainage. Let's go walk through the drainage again, from two homes on that small,
Yep.
two lots. Now, that's going to go underground, the drainage?
We've hired a licensed civil engineer to look at it, to address it, to engineer it. It's been reviewed by the village, the practicality of it, and as Joe has mentioned, as I mentioned, that you're probably getting more storm drainage by doing it the way that we're doing it. It's currently there.
I'm not an engineer, so I will try to explain it as not an engineer. I have an engineer sitting on my commission, so he will correct me if I missay anything. But basically, the way the water is allowed to flow across properties is water is allowed to flow in the natural path that it would go. So the house that was there, the rain hit that property, and I think it goes to the southwest towards the wetlands. That's where everything flows. So independent of if this property develops, it's always allowed to go in that direction. What the stormwater requirements do is they say, okay, well, how much are you building up? How much house and driveway and walks and patio, how much are you building that stops the rain from absorbing into the grass? And they have a calculation method to say what that volume is. And then they say, you need to store that for a period of time so that it releases slowly. So I told you the water's allowed to go off the property in the natural flow rate And then basically, when you develop, it says, well, no, you got to hold a certain amount of water, and then it can be dispersed slowly to try to control flooding. So that is what he indicated is our requirement. The engineers look at all the calculations and the storage methods. Most properties do it above ground, where you kind of dig a little depression, and after a big rain, you can see the water sitting there. But it is slowly being distributed out in the direction it's allowed to go. His proposal does the same. The only thing is that basically underneath the grass, they dig a pit that's filled with gravel, cover it with more grass, and then all the water goes into that gravel pit, and it sits there, and it slowly absorbs and moves on. So that is my best non-engineering explanation. Okay.
So that concept could, sometimes the property whole thing will be caved in.
Sir, would you come to the podium and address the question?
There is a lot of flooding in that area, especially the open ground there. Once rain comes, it will be looking like a lake. Water never goes. And in my property, it seeps under the basement, and 24/7 for several months, I am pumping water and leaving out, but still again, it is flowing back into this. Because there is a gradient and so much water is getting logged, and there is no proper storm system to take out the water and, put it somewhere else. So digging pits, putting stones and storing water, I don't think the amount of rain, it used to be April showers and May flowers, it is no more. Even December also it is raining here. There is a global warming and warning that's going on. So I don't think any engineer will create a small pit, put some stones, they'll store the water. That is not practical, sorry.
Thank you. Staff, can you respond to that?
I can try. So I believe what the resident was saying is that he's experiencing stormwater issues on his property, and he's on the other side of Ryan Court. Is that correct? First off, I don't know the topography. I don't think that this property flows in the direction of his home. I think it flows in the direction of her home and to the south. So I don't know that anything will remedy what's happening by your home. That's part of the original development of Ryan Court. That was designed by engineers and your builder, and it sounds like there might be some issues with the way that was designed or maintained over time. The code does not try to remedy flooding in an entire area. The code is there to say everyone can develop their property within rules and requirements. You cannot exacerbate the flow of water off your property. You have to improve it. So in theory, development of this should improve the water rate that goes towards the southwest by slowing it and holding it for a while, whereas the other property that used to be there, if there was a big rain, it would just all shoot off the property. So does that answer your question?
Yes, thank you. It does. Okay, next. Okay, no one else from the public? Sir, would you like to make any final comment?
No, I mean, I think, I just want to reiterate, I think what we're not requesting to be part of the subdivision. That's not something that we're requesting. I think just the things to keep in mind, what we're requesting are three minor items. A setback that is supposed to be 35 to 25 feet, but that matches the properties and other houses in the area. Changing the zoning, which matches, actually gets it more in line with the properties in the area. And then also the lot depth, which is 71 feet. It's supposed to be 125 feet, but it's a little more semantics. It's just because of how the house is oriented that we have to request the lot depth variation.
I'll speak out of turn. If you had two lots, could you orient them both north? If so, where would lot two's driveway be?
Yeah, I think it would be challenging for the south lot. I don't think it would be appealing at all. I think the way that it's configured now is more appealing for the village. I mean, we've looked at this, we've had architects look at it, we've had planners look at it, and where we've landed is the most practical, the most appealing location of those houses is to face Ryan Court.
All right, thank you. Okay, let's go to the commissioners. Commissioner Scales, will you start?
Thank you for the presentation and for the comments. Most of the questions I have were answered during this back and forth, so at this time, I don't have any questions. Thanks.
Okay. Commissioner Lavoy.
Yes, I have a couple of questions. Staff, the existing houses on the east side of Ryan Court, the side yard setback is 6 feet, correct? The houses, when I drive over there and look at it, the houses are like right on top of each other.
So you're asking about the Ryan Court development?
Yes.
I don't know what their side yard setbacks are. I know that their front yard
But it's
setback
R3.
is 20. It is R3.
So the minimum is
It-
5.
It is most likely 6.
6. Okay, so I know you've said this a number of times, but the bottom line is that the petitioner is proposing 14 feet, and the existing houses of a rear yard setback, and the existing houses have a 6-foot side yard setback. Is that correct?
I believe so.
Okay, all right. Just want to make sure I understand it. Second thing is I have a question for Mr. Zemanek. Something came up in testimony tonight about the covenants. Would those covenants that were drawn and recorded back when Ryan Court was developed, it seems like it did have an overlay here to this subject property. Would those covenants be part of the title commitment? Or would it show up as part of a requirement by the new owner or the petitioner?
Well, you'd have to ask the petitioner that, when they purchased the property, this was property, by the way, that the village filed a lawsuit against the property owner in court to have a court order to demolish the property because of its poor condition. The petitioner's company stepped in and was willing to buy it and demolish it to save the village that effort, which was appreciated. That was worked out, but I don't know if they did obtained a title commitment, a title policy.
That I am aware of, it's not an issue, you know.
But I think the question is that we had testimony from a resident saying there's a strip of land that is owned by Fairfield for Owners Association and maintained by them. And Mr. Henner seems to think that that's not the case. I think you can proceed tonight with your recommendation, assuming it's not an issue. And between now and when this matter gets to the village board, we can investigate that further and see if that strip was dedicated to the village or not.
It doesn't show up on the plat of survey.
No. Can I put something up for? I just want to make sure with the resident here that we're talking about the same thing. Sir, are you talking about the strip of land here and here down by the cul-de-sac?
That's exactly what I'm
Okay.
referring to.
Okay, so.
And we actually I have a full plat survey at home, which I should have brought, which indicates Fairfield 4, that this strip and that area here.
I can't see
and This
that.
goes back, I want to say 15 feet, I think, from the street to 15 feet back.
Zoom out.
And there's a series of trees and landscaping and things and we've been maintaining this, we've been planting trees and mowing the lawn for 22 years, and that is.
But I do have it. I'll print it out.
Sir, can you point at what you just pointed out on the
We didn't
overhead?
see
Not
that.
up there, not up there, over here,
I'm
please.
sorry.
I want you to point
Thank
on
you.
that. I'm sorry.
Okay, see if I can do this. Okay, right where this blue section is here, from the street to 15 feet so the blue line, I think, is a little bit too close to the street to indicate where, Our property starts from the street to 15 feet back along that line. And we also have this area right here that backs up. So you have from the street, 15 feet, and this area back here.
Okay, thank you for that, appreciate it.
Is that Ryan Court a public right-of-way?
Yes.
Yes, it is.
It is.
It is.
It's not a private street.
Ryan Court was a publicly dedicated right-of-way. So according to so that map is taken from the county, the parcel data. That map indicates that the village retains ownership of everything between the subject lot and then the lots of Ryan Court across the street. So the trees that he indicated they planted down by the cul-de-sac, that entire area shows as village-owned right-of-way.
I would find it extremely odd to have a subdivision own a strip on the opposite side of a street that was dedicated. And I'm thinking maybe if the Fairfield 4 subdivision was annexed to the village with a roadway, perhaps there was some confusion between annexing to the far side of the roadway versus who actually owns it and is obligated to maintain it. We can look at the documents that approved Fairfield 4, which hopefully would give us our answer.
I believe the intent of the original development was that you were supposed to come down Ryan Court, and then Ryan Court was not supposed to end in a cul-de-sac. It was supposed to head further west and then back up to 56, then be a U-looped court. That never occurred. This development started. There was what's called a recapture agreement, so I think it was McNaughton that did this. The builder did set up a recapture agreement. What a recapture agreement says is that developer is going to pay to put the roadway in, but other people might take advantage of the road by subdividing their properties, and the developer wants to be repaid for all of the investment. There is a recapture.
Not all of it, a prorated portion.
A prorated portion. There is a recapture agreement on Ryan Court, so McNaughton seemed to anticipate more lots developing on Ryan Court. And I believe that we gave you a dollar amount that you have to reimburse if this was ever built. So all I'm trying to indicate there is that I don't think this actually developed the way the finished development the way they thought. It kind of got partially developed, and that's kind of why we're left with kind of these odd pieces, I think.
Okay. Anything else, Chris?
So, yeah, I think that based on the testimony that I've heard tonight, and the clarity that the village staff and our village attorney has given us, my questions have been answered, and I think that really they've been mitigated, not just answered, but because of the Ryan Court side yard setbacks being 6 feet, and this proposal has addressed that as best as they can by providing 14 feet to the lot line, and there's a 10-foot drainage and utility easement that they're also proposing. I think that the objections have been mitigated. And I think that it's not our purview to do other comments related to the building materials and the look of the houses and that's not our purview. So I'm not even going to comment on it. So I just think that the map amendment, the zoning request, and the variation requests are reasonable for this property. That's all I have.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair, could I just respond to something that Commissioner Lavoie stated?
Of course.
Is the village doesn't have a minimum construction standard for single-family homes. So if the houses across the street are brick and these are the board and batten kind of farmhouse look, there's nothing in our code that says we can dictate what the materials are for single-family homes. We often do it on commercial properties, but we don't have the same authority on single-family.
And that's the same for size, and we're looking at perhaps 20% smaller square footage.
We regulate, so there's several things that regulate size. One is floor area ratio, which is how much living space intensity can you allow on a lot. That will still have to be met when they come in for permit. The other is lot coverage. Basically, how much of your lot can you cover with stuff? Stuff is the house, the driveway, the patio, anything that stops the rain from absorbing into the ground. There are limits on that. I believe we've analyzed that, and it meets the requirements there. It's a 35% requirement. So that is how our code limits the size, those two elements. And then also with setbacks, because obviously, if you have setbacks, then you can't build too far out, so.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Peterson?
I just have a question for the developer. If all this goes through, is your plan to do both houses at one time, do the site work at one time on both, do everything at one time, or are you going to just do one side and the other side, or?
I think the market will dictate that, depending upon the demand. We currently don't have it marketed until we subdivide it. So how we're going to phase that and how we're going to plan it is going to be dictated by the market.
Are you going to build these as spec houses, or are you going to get a buyer and build it according to the?
The preference would be to do, proposed construction and to find a client and build it that way, as opposed to do a spec home.
So if you would start it, you would just, once it's subdivided, you would do one lot at a time?
It just depends.
Okay.
Depends on, what the market would dictate.
Okay, and I think everything else was pretty self-explanatory, but I was just curious how they were gonna go about doing that, just so we don't have, another piece of property that is gonna be an issue. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. Commissioner Thomas?
I pretty understand what's going on. You change your neighbor's property, as she was, concerned about how close you were at. Since you changed the location or the structure of the properties, it ends up being further away from her house than it could have been.
Correct. Had it faced 56th Street, within our right, we would be closer to her house.
Right.
Had it faced 56th Street. Now, our decision to have it face Ryan Court actually provided more distance between where her edge of her house and the edge of this house would be.
And then both of the frontal would be at 25 and both sides of the street,
Correct.
which would be more uniform.
Correct.
That's all I have.
All right, thank you. Yeah, I guess the water runoff issue, I think, has been answered to my satisfaction. Homeowners Association requirements apparently would not apply. They're unique to Fairfield 4, and these would not be a part of it. So, yeah, I'm kind of, I understand your concern, ma'am, with the closeness, but I think that issue, if the developer were to build a house behind you that was facing north, it would be much closer than his proposal here. So I think all my questions are answered. So at this point, I believe the chair would entertain a motion to approve under public hearing PZC 035-202, or I'm sorry, 020-2023, a request from Arcad Development regarding the property at 329 East 56th for the following. First, map amendment request to rezone from R1 to R3. Do I have a motion?
So move Scales.
Second, Peterson?
Okay, motion to approve Scales and Peterson is second. Discussion on this item? Seeing none, roll call, please.
Let's see, Chairman Lavoy?
Yes.
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 Thomas is yes. Scales?
Yes.
Ms. Peterson?
Yes.
Me.
Yeah, well, you get a vote.
I get to vote too.
Chairman Carmichael?
Yes. Second, a zoning ordinance variance request to allow for the construction of new homes within a required front yard setback in the R3 Single Family Detached Residence District. Do I have a motion to approve?
Motion, Scales.
Second.
Second,
Peterson.
Peterson. Discussion on this? Seeing none, roll call.
Lavoy?
Yes.
Thomas is yes. Scales?
Yes.
And Peterson?
Yes.
And Chairman?
Yes. Third, Westmont Land Development Ordinance variance request to allow the establishment of 2 lots of a substandard lot depth. Do I have a motion to approve?
Motion, Scales.
Second. Peterson.
Discussion? Seeing none, roll call.
Lavoy?
Yes.
Thomas is yes. Scales?
Yes.
And Peterson?
Yes.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes. And finally, a preliminary plat of subdivision to subdivide 1 lot into 2 lots. Do I have a motion to approve?
Motion, Scales.
Second. Peterson.
Discussion?
Mr. Chair, I
Yes.
just have one comment. I'd just like to slip in here that this subject property has a driveway access on 56th Street that's existing. I would assume that staff would eliminate that as part of the engineering, correct?
Correct.
That I would not attach any other comment.
All right. Thank you. Did you vote?
We didn't call the roll call yet.
We did motion.
We did motion with discussion, did not call
Okay.
roll call.
Thank you. Roll call, please.
This is for 4?
Yes, this is for 4. The subdivision.
Okay. Lavoy?
Yes.
Thomas is yes. Scales?
Yes.
Peterson?
Yes.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes. Okay, there you have it, sir. You'll be scheduled by staff. They'll contact you when you're scheduled to go before the village board. Thank you.
Mr. Chair, since we have a lot of residents that are here.
And
it's-
thank you, folks.
It's anticipated
Court.
that this will be at the board on January 11th.
January 11th. Did you copy that, folks? It'll- Okay, it's a little after 8 o'clock. Bob, I see you're here now. I would propose, this is going to run pretty late, and I don't think we're going to be able to get everything done here tonight. I would propose that we go ahead and take the last issue of the cat grooming.
It's a fairly simple.
It seems so. It's just a simple, it's a single request. If we allow that applicant to come forward out of order, is that okay with you, Mr. Fleck? Yes. Then, under public hearing PZC 044-2023, we have a request by Christine Haldeman and her company Happy Cat Grooming, and Sharon Lockhart Plonka, who's the owner of the building, regarding the property located at 136 North Cass for the following. a special use permit request for an animal grooming business in the B1 Limited Business District. Good evening.
Good evening. My name is Christine Haldeman. I'm here to ask for a special use permit to move my cat grooming business to downtown Westmont. I was a mobile groomer, and I had an accident with my van, and I am now looking to set up a brick and mortar location. I was a resident of Westmont for 17 years, and I saw this property, and I think it's a great opportunity to come back to where a city I really love. I am primarily cats, so it may seem bizarre, but, no problems with dogs or anything on the outside. I do have about 400 clients, and many people come to me from Elgin, New Lenox, Geneva. I am a certified veterinary technician, along with being a certified feline cat groomer, and there are only 12 of us in Illinois. So it's kind of a little niche business.
Thank you. We have staff comments?
Thank you, Chair. So the property we're talking about today is 136 North Cass Avenue. It's located in the downtown part of Westmont, just off Cass and Norfolk. The site contains a 2-story commercial building with a commercial space at the bottom and a dwelling on the first or the second floor, as well as a detached garage that's in the rear that accesses the alleyway in the rear. The building was formerly occupied by an optometrist office. That is no longer there currently. The zoning of this property is in the B1 Limited Business District. In this district, the zoning ordinance requires that all animal groomers obtain a special use permit if the space is larger than 1,000 square feet, which this one is. And the special use permit is required because we need to assess such impacts as traffic, the use of the space, and the activities, as well as the number of employees. Along with the special use permit request, there's also a special condition attached to this request, which is special condition 1 within the zoning ordinance. It states that the use may be permitted, provided that no building or outdoor portion of the lot containing the use is located within 100 feet of a residency. There is a residency in the rear. The approximate distance separation is about 120 feet from the building to that residential property line. As Christine noted, the use is for grooming for specializing in cats, but as will have services provided for dogs by appointment only, I believe.
Yes, among my clients, I actually take care of 6 dogs altogether, and they belong with cats. And basically, they're like a lab that I give a bath to, or I trim nails. It's just like the same family, sorry. And just being a vet tech, I have just kind of provide a little bit of surgery services for it. I don't have any training in formal haircuts or anything for dogs, so I'm not going to be adding that on. Just I might do like a nail trim for a family member.
In addition, the services provided for the cat side of the business is nail trimming, nail caps, baths, haircuts for the cats, to name a few. The petitioner also indicated that they may offer overnight boarding of animals, which our zoning ordinance limits this to 2 or less. Otherwise, we'd have to label this as a kennel use if they have 2 or more than 2. Which is not permitted in the B1 district. So along with this approval tonight, we recommend that we reiterate that point. Staff recommends we reiterate that point for the requirement of 2 or less animals being housed overnight. The anticipated operation hours for this is Monday through Friday, 9 a.m. to 5 p.m., and Saturday, 9 a.m. to 3 p.m., as well as reserved hours Sunday as needed. She anticipates 2 to 3 employees on site. As we've discussed prior, no additional parking is required, as this is in the B1 district. And the request substantially complies with both the requirements of the zoning ordinance, municipal codes, and comprehensive plan. And I'm open to any questions.
All right. Is there anyone from the public who would like to address this with questions or comments? Seeing none, let's go to the board. Commissioner Scales, would you start again?
Sure. Thank you for the presentation, and glad to see you bringing your business to Westmont. I don't have any comments at this time.
Thank you. Commissioner Lavoy.
I have no questions, and I'm supportive of the petition.
Commissioner Peterson.
Is the, you'll be purchasing this, is the upstairs going to stay rental?
I was thinking eventually to have it be a residential area. Right now, my focus is really just to get in there and get my business started, and just kind of see what happens. That's my focus, is the business, and then I would make it residential up there eventually.
And will anything in the garage be part of
So
the
it's
business?
not a garage, it's like it's a parking pad that's
Yeah.
covered.
Yeah.
Okay. And nothing there will be part of the business?
No,
Okay, that's all I have, thank you.
thank you.
And just to clarify, well, okay, I'll wait for my turn. Go ahead. Commissioner Thomas?
No, I was going to ask about overnight, but that's been addressed and you're aware of
Yes,
that.
so that was my original, when I was thinking of, going brick and mortar, perhaps I could offer boarding. I understand it's not allowed. So the only thing I could potentially see is that if someone dropped off a cat, bad weather, I have some older clients, if they can't come get it, it may have to stay overnight. And so I discussed that with him, that it would never be a lot of pets, never.
Yeah, so staff recommendation would be to reiterate the point that it would be limited to 2 or less.
That's all I have.
All right, thank you. For clarification, that apartment upstairs, is it currently occupied?
No,
So there's not a renter in it?
no,
but
the
there has-
right, the ophthalmology building used it as their office space.
I see. And
And
so,
the building is vacant at the time, right now.
we got the boarding. The front of the building has 2 doors, one far left, one far right. Would
Yes.
you, are they both active doors you would use?
They are both active right now, and then I do have a construction company that came in, and should I make that a residential, look into the possibility of blocking off one to just make it the residential.
See.
But they both open up into the reception area right now.
And just briefly, what are veterinary technicians qualified to do or certified to do?
Oh, so I'm just basically that I'm allowed to do anything except prescribe, diagnose, or do surgery. And so a lot of people, just because of my experience with animals and cats, trust me with their cats. Cats can have hyperthyroidism, that can have a heart issue, diabetes, things like that, and they can become matted. That's often a sign of illness. And that is kind of works into what I do, and shaving them. They can have very fragile skin, and so that's just what a lot of people prefer, that I take care of their pet, just knowing those things.
Can you give them a shot, like an antibiotic or something?
No, because that would be prescribing medication.
I see. Okay, well, thank you. That's all I have.
Thank you.
And if anyone doesn't have anything anymore, then the chair would entertain a motion to approve a special use permit request for an animal grooming business in the B1 Limited Business District.
Motion, Scales.
The motion to approve Scales.
I'll
Have a
second. Second, Lavoy.
Second, Lavoy. I have to apologize, folks, this is the secretary's first time being secretary.
Okay,
Got that? So,
got it.
discussion? Seeing none, roll call.
Okay, Mr. Lavoy?
Yes.
Thomas says yes. Scales?
Yes.
And Peterson?
No.
Okay. And Chairman?
Yes. Okay, so we have 5 members here tonight. So a majority, 4 of the normal 7 voted yes, so the motion passes.
Okay, thank you.
And you'll be notified by staff?
Yes, we believe, I believe January 11th will likely be the date. If so, otherwise I'll contact you.
Okay, thank you
Okay.
very much.
All right, sir. Good night. Okay, Mr. Fleck, thank you for waiting. The next 5 items on the agenda are all with the Westmont Park District. The first of which is public hearing PZC 035-2023. We have 3 requests from the Westmont Park District regarding the properties at 314 and 350, which are they consist of Lot 2 of the Sea Cliff subdivision on North Grant here in Westmont. For the following: first, a special use permit request for a new park and associated facilities in the R3 single-family detached residential district. Secondly, preliminary plat of subdivision to consolidate 2 lots into 1 lot in the R3 single-family detached residence district. And third, Westmont Land Development Ordinance variance request for relief from both the installation and cash in lieu contribution of certain required land improvements. Good evening, sir.
Good evening. Thank you, Chairman. P&Z. This is a exciting project for us. It's always a wonderful thing.
And your name, sir?
Oh, Robert Fleck, Executive Director, Westmont Park District.
Good evening.
Okay, thank you. This particular one at 314 and 350 North Grand Street is particularly exciting because that's not often we get to add new parkland to Westmont, and that's always a good thing for everybody for quality of life, recreational opportunities, and property values for our residents. This particular one, we acquired the parcels in the 2021 and 2022. I'm going to put the plat of consolidation on the overhead. So standard practice, 2 parcels here. The larger one at the bottom is nearly 1 acre, that is 314. And then the one to the north is roughly a ½ acre, and that is 350 North Grant Street. We would consolidate these into 1 parcel under 1 PIN number to create a 1.44 acre neighborhood park site, very consistent with many of our other small neighborhood parks, accessible by sidewalk, and for the neighbors. Parks are available and welcome to all, but this again would be truly a neighborhood park. That is our intent, and the site plan for this, and can you, okay. Thank you, Scott. Does that work? Yes, it does. All right, the master plan for this is to provide something very consistent with other similar sized neighborhood parks. Open play space, playground, open air picnic shelter, bike rack, drinking fountain, interior sidewalk to access the playground and the picnic shelter.
And is that clear to everyone? North would be to the right? It would be
That is correct.
west at the top?
Yes.
Thank you.
This is to the north, this is to the south. And we have a number of mature trees that are on the property. We already have preserved many of them on 350 North Grant. I'm sorry, 314 North Grant, 350 North Grant. We have not touched that property yet. There are quite a few hazardous and dead trees. Those would be removed and cleared out. Any quality trees would be preserved. So we want to keep this as natural and wooded as possible. And that is our intent and plan for this particular property. Any questions?
Well, we'll find out. Staff?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So there are a lot of Park District properties before us tonight, so I'll try to avoid duplication. I might talk a little bit more on this one. That means I can talk less on other ones. So what's before us is the creation of a neighborhood park. Parks within residential districts are required to have a special use approval. What you heard Director Fleck also say is that he's taking 2 properties. So part of this is he's going to consolidate that into 1 property. If anyone's confused about the address 350 North Grant, there's actually a brand-new house at 350 North Grant because the lot that was split into 2 used to be 1 lot. There was 1 house that stood on it. It was addressed 350. When they tore down the house, the people that subdivided the property built their house on the north lot, decided to sell the south lot to the Park District. So they're technically both 350 North Grant. That's why we put a clarifying, it's Lot 2 of that subdivision. So just in case anyone's confused, we're not going to build a park on that brand-new house that was built. So what's before you is that consolidation, which it meets the minimum standards for a lot. It meets the minimum standards for this type of use on that lot. So for example, it's required to have 20,000 square feet. He's actually got a little over 62,000 square feet. So what you're here to, essentially to look at is the programming and the special use and the impact on the neighborhood. So you heard him indicate that this is a neighborhood park. There are no parking requirements for this type of park. It is basically if the planning and zoning feel that the on-street parking that exists is adequate, then if approved, that it meets what the planning and zoning requests. You heard Director Fleck mention that it's got sidewalk access. So obviously, if you're trying to serve the neighborhood, you want to see that everyone can walk to it. If you can't walk to it, then they're going to drive to it. So there are sidewalks that serve this. There are some special use conditions, and I made a copy for everyone at the dais for them to look at. So I'm going to go through it a little bit more in detail, not verbatim. Yeah, you can put it up if anyone wants to try to read. It's a lot of words, but basically, the example I'm going to use is whenever we approve a dealership, there's always special conditions that we kind of automatically always apply to a dealership. Usually those are, don't put your prices on the windows, don't have megaphones, but it's a standard set of conditions. So what we were trying to do is work with the Park District and come up with a standard set of conditions that are applied for special uses for the Park District, working within the codes, but establishing what the Park District can do over time without always having to come back to planning and zoning and ask for a new approval. So I'm going to break this down into layman's terms. So basically, number one, it talks about all new or modified buildings and structures, including fields and sport courts. So basically, we're saying that all the uses on a Park District property are primary uses. And the reason we're trying to say that is because we have a lot of rules and regulations for accessory uses, accessory buildings. The Park District has a lot of need for small buildings and structures, whether it be a picnic structure, whether it be restrooms or other types of facilities that don't fit neatly within our accessory buildings and structures code. So we want to say, number one, that all the structures that they have are primary structures, which means it needs to meet primary structure setbacks. So whenever the Park District wants to propose a new small outbuilding, we're going to make sure it meets those setbacks, and if it does, then it can go straight to permit and get permits to be constructed. Number two is talking about programming. So programming is basically what activities are happening in the park, because that programming can have a net effect on the neighborhood. If he's proposing a stadium with bleacher seating, that's very different than a pocket park that has a picnic shelter. Obviously, a stadium needs parking. It's got noise and lighting constraints. So what we've said is that there are typical standard park programming that are less impactful. Basketball court, tennis court, something like that. That the Park District can change out that programming without having to come in and amend its special use. We did change the language a bit from your staff reports in item C, which basically said was that parks have operating hours of 9 p.m. to during the week. You can correct me if I'm wrong, or 10 p.m. on the weekend. And we gave a hard stop to activities in our original language. But the Park District indicated that sometimes games run a little late, sometimes they have special events that are occurring. So what we did is we amended the language to say generally it's 9 o'clock or 10 o'clock or approved through a special use community events permit. So any of the barbecues or fireworks or anything that's planned to be later has those approvals. So that's one of the changes we made. We don't want new uses that are offensive in any way introduced. So there's a clause in here that says basically anything that affects traffic or population, that those are the kinds of triggers that we would say, yes, you have to come back to planning and zoning and the board to amend that use. And then finally, it's an allotment for signage. Technically, there is a clause in our code that says that governmental entities, and the Park District is one of those, is exempt from the sign code. Now, we always try to operate within the rules and regulations we hold everyone else to. So we typically operate that way. So what we've done here is we've said, well, the main park signage, so their ground sign, needs to meet our rules and regulations because that's a sign by the street, and we want to see that it meets our requirements. However, the Park District has a requirement for lots of other little signs, whether it says restrooms this way or a pavilion or something like that. That, we would say, is exempt from our sign code and could just go to permit. So if you remember, you wanted to replace a lot of your signs at a lot of existing parks, and we hyper-scrutinize that. We're trying to avoid a lot of that hyper-scrutiny that we don't have to do if we write it into this special use. So those are the special use conditions that we would propose to be added to this motion. And then when we get to some of these other parks, these are the same special use conditions that we want to add as well. I'm here for any questions, as well as Director Fleming.
Okay, is that clear to everyone? The special use conditions don't have to be reiterated on some of these other requests, what we've just covered. Okay?
One point of clarification on the timing. Our conduct ordinances and as the rules posted in our parks, neighborhood parks close at 9 p.m. and community parks close at 10 p.m. unless sponsored activities.
Okay. Excellent. That's it, staff? Good.
I believe, oh, you know what, I did miss one thing. One of the requests is the variance to the installation and providing cash in lieu.
Oh.
What that means, you've seen that on a few other projects recently. So basically, whenever you have a subdivision, and consolidations of lots are also subdivisions, it basically says that public improvements are required. So if the village wanted to improve Grant Street, that could be widening of the street, that could be installation of curb and gutter, there's already a sidewalk, street lights, those types of things. This is a rural cross-section that we have here. We don't wish to make those improvements. And because this is the Park District and we have a working relationship with the Park District, we're not requesting that they give us cash in lieu, basically money in advance for when we might improve that. So they formally have to request that variance to both the installation of public improvements and providing cash for the public improvements.
Got it.
I apologize for missing that.
That clear, Bob?
Clear.
And I'd point out that that variance is from the Land Development Code, not the zoning ordinance, so there's no requirement to publish notice or provide notice to surrounding property owners of that variance, because it's not a zoning ordinance variance, and there's no required findings of fact. You just have to determine whether there's circumstances that warrant the granting of that variance. And I think Joe just explained the reasons why.
Okay. Is there anyone from the public who would like to address this? Good evening, sir.
Dan Charleston. I live at 118 West Chicago Avenue. It's right around the corner from this proposed park, and we're excited about the park. I personally have two questions, actually. One, are you planning any lighting inside?
We are providing, and we're proposing to provide, assuming we can get power from ComEd, just a security light underneath the open-air picnic shelter. That is it. We do not provide interior lighting at neighborhood parks because it encourages late-night use.
I know, so that was one. My only other concern or question, I know, and thank you for mentioning that parking in neighborhood parks is not required. For those of, so every morning I leave my house and I go east on Chicago Avenue, exactly 2 houses, and I turn left on Grant Street, and I go north to my office in Oak Brook. And then every night I come home, I come south on Grant Street. And so on Grant Street, that's not a curbed street. For any of you who have driven it, it's an original, road that's been there forever and a day. And so when there's events or when there's parking, so as an example, Holidays, just this past weekend, it loaded up at the library, right? And so a ton of cars parked along Grant Street.
Yeah.
And you'd be shocked at how many cars we actually get in that little part of the neighborhood even for just cruising nights, and certainly for Taste of Westmont. So there's generally a fair amount of parking. And when it's parked, on both sides especially, it's tight. It's very tight, right? And so never mind me, I have 2 daughters, adult daughters, but 20s daughters who drive that little road on a regular basis. And there's some older folks in the neighborhood who drive that road on a regular basis. And so I'll get to my point. I'd love to have a little parking cut in for a couple cars, because clearly if this neighborhood lot gets some use, and ideally it does, occasionally there's going to be people who there, and they're going to have to park on the street. And anything to alleviate some of that parking on the street, because it's a thin street. And it's just, the potential for damage to the parked cars and damage to other things, especially at night, is I think real. So I'd love to have a little parking cut in. Certainly not, and I don't know if there are any other are there other neighborhood parks in Westmont that don't have any parking allocation? And how does it work?
So there was a time before we had Time Warner Park, and we're going back to the 70s, we're going back to the 80s.
I'm not that old.
Yeah, where we used to have programming in some of our larger neighborhood parks, because those were all the parks that we had. I'll give you examples. Sentinel Park, Lions Park, and Fritz Worley Park. Those have off-street parking. That type of parking, villages are going to allow that. That is just not done these days. However, we don't program in those parks anymore, because that's one of the reasons why the Park District acquired and developed Ty Warner Park, to get programming out of neighborhood parks. So the neighborhood parks are for the neighbors. So to have people driving to our neighborhood parks is a rarity that are like that, and I'll give you some examples. Oakwood Park does not have parking. Williams Cove Park on the south side does not have parking. Rotary Park does not have parking. Mertz Park does not have parking. So Wilderness Park does not have parking. And again, it is truly for the neighbors. So to have somebody come to as a destination, they're going typically Ty Warner Park, Veterans Memorial Park, Diane Main Park, and to the engineering and the cost and the space required to put 2 parking spaces inside the park would take up a tremendous amount of open space, and it kind of defeats the purpose of a neighborhood park.
I think, obviously, those lots are 350 feet deep. Like I say, just my personal preference would be to figure out a way to engineer a couple spots, just because I know how thin that street is, and I know that as much as we talk about it, it doesn't get parking. For instance, my youngest daughter with my grandson drives to Fritz Worley Park and parks, right? And so she'll go to McCullough Park. She'll go to what's the one on Park Avenue right by Ogden that has parking.
Sentinel Park.
Sentinel Park, yes. So I know they're not programmed, but there are definitely people who drive there, and it's just as a matter of preference, I think it's inevitable that 1 or 2 people or a family might say, hey, meet us at whatever the name of this park is, right? And I think that's inevitable. That's just inevitable. It will happen. So if there's any way to alleviate that, that'd be great. I certainly don't oppose the project, even as presented, but if there was a way to incorporate some parking, that would be great.
Okay.
Gentlemen, thank you as well.
And thank you.
Lady, thank you.
So there's parking allowed on both sides of North Grant? Right, parking is allowed on both sides of North Grant?
Yes.
There's no restriction. Thank you.
Oh, it does not have a no parking one side?
No.
I live on Randolph.
I know my street on Warwick there's one side that does not allow parking.
It's never been one time.
Okay, anybody else from the village, from the public here? Seeing none, let's move on to the commissioners. Matt, you want to go first?
Sure. Thanks for the presentation. I think it looks fantastic. I don't have any comments or questions. Appreciate it.
Great.
Commissioner Lavoy.
Yes, Bob, thank you for being here tonight. Would you have an electronic sign at this location?
Pardon?
Would you be proposing an electronic sign at this location?
At this location?
Yes.
No.
Okay. Just want to make sure. Also, it just struck me, and you could answer this, I'm sure. What struck me about your presentation and the proposal is the depth of the lot, and do we really need to make that path big enough for an emergency vehicle to get in there? Like if the paramedics need to get in there, they'd have to go an awful long way to get to that playground from the street. Does that make sense to you? I don't know if it does or not. I'm just throwing it out there.
They would, this be for the chief to answer, but I would think, similar to other parks, they'd have more than enough access by parking at the street and then running the gurney up the sidewalk to it, which will be handicapped
Is that
accessible.
path going to be paved, or is it
Yes.
going to be brick? Okay, so they can go down the path.
Paved sidewalk.
Okay. Hey, anytime we can add the park, especially in Westmont, that's great. I'm in. No other questions.
Thank you. Jill?
Hi, Bob.
Hi, Jim.
I didn't hear your reply about the lights. That was one of my questions. That gentleman asked about the
Our
lights.
only proposed light, assuming we can get an electric feed and a drop from ComEd, is to put a security light underneath the open-air picnic shelter. That is the only light.
Okay.
As a neighborhood park, we don't want to encourage late-night use, so we do not put interior lighting in those parks.
Okay. And that will be fenced off by the park district? up
We
in
do
the-
not fence our parks. One neighbor has a fence. Actually, two sides of the property is fenced already by the other
Yeah.
neighbors. To the north, there is no fence. So
How do you keep the little kids from running in people's yard? Those people's yard?
Bring it.
Again, parks are open. We have not fenced off any parks in
Really?
Westmont. No, we have not.
I never knew that. And well, I don't know how big the little pavilion thing is gonna be, but is that gonna be one, I don't know the difference between a neighborhood park and a community park.
It's about 4 picnic tables, to give you a general idea.
Is that gonna be one like where people call the park district
No.
and reserve it? No?
No.
So that'll never,
It is-
that'll never
it is-
be
It
issued?
will not be available for rent.
Okay. That's all I had.
Okay.
I'm looking forward to
And
it.
we wouldn't do
being
that
there.
because there's no parking.
Yeah. Oh, thanks, Bob.
Craig?
I have no questions.
Okay,
Thank you.
I'd point out, it's my turn, that you do mention that you would be putting in bike rack in the park
Correct.
as part of this.
Like to encourage bike riding?
Sure, no restrooms at this one, but you would have a water fountain.
Yes.
And I was going to ask about the security light is not a pole light over the park, it's under the ceiling.
The equivalent of an incandescent bulb,
Okay.
if those still exist.
And so you're, of course, aware that the special conditions we discussed previously would apply to this as well.
Yes.
And you're talking about the trees, particularly on the north portion there. Are you working with the village forester on identifying these, what's good, what's bad, what?
I'm pretty confident. I'm a landscape architect, so I'm pretty confident that what we're saving is going to be quality, and what we're getting rid of is either dead or hazardous.
Okay. All right, that's all I have. And so,
Whole bunch of pine trees.
Any other questions, comments? Then Chair would entertain a motion to approve public hearing PZC 035-2023. Request for 314 and 350 in North Grant for the following. First, special use permit request for a new park and associated facilities in the R3 single-family detached residential district. Do I have a motion to approve?
Motion, Scales.
Second, Cumming?
I'll second. Lavoy.
Second, Lavoy. Discussion?
Okay.
Seeing none, roll call. Stand by.
No.
Do you have a question, Jill? Okay.
Let's see. Okay. Lavoy?
Yes.
Thomas is yes. Scales?
Yes.
Peterson?
Yes.
And Thomas is yes.
Chair.
Did you get the chair?
Chair.
My turn? Me?
Oh, you get to vote?
Yes. I vote yes.
Okay.
Secondly,
Very good, got it.
a preliminary plat of subdivision to consolidate 2 lots into 1 lot in the R3 single-family detached residence district.
Motion, Scales.
Good night, sir.
Good night, thank you.
I'll second. Lavoy.
Okay, we've got
Lavoy
Scales.
second.
Lavoy seconds. Discussion? Seeing none, roll call.
Let's see. Lavoy?
Yes.
Thomas is yes. Scales?
Yes.
Peterson?
Yes.
Chairman Carmichael?
Yes. Okay, and finally, Westmont Land Development Ordinance Variance Request for relief from both the installation and cash in lieu contribution of required land improvements.
Motion, Scales.
Second. Lavoy.
I have a motion and a second. Discussion on the item. Seeing none, roll call.
It's Mr. Lavoy?
Yes.
Thomas is yes. Scales?
Yes.
Peterson?
Yes.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes. Okay,
Real quick, Bob, didn't the Village Park District get a grant for that park?
We did. We received an acquisition grant on both parcels, and currently at this time, we have applied for a development grant to help us with the construction of this park. We'll probably find out whether or not we've been awarded that in the springtime. So we're keeping our fingers crossed. We've been pretty successful in the past with these grant applications. And yeah, we'd love to, 3's a charm, get a third one for this park.
all right. Okay, next agenda item, public hearing PZC 036-2023, a request by Westmont Park District regarding the property located at 490 North Warwick, Fritz Worley Park, for the following. A special use permit request to allow an existing park, associated facilities, and new improvements, that is, adding an open shelter and pathways in the R3 single-family detached residential district.
Okay. This is an existing park. It's one of our older parks, Fritz Worley Park. Currently, there is a T-ball field here. This is the only program that occurs in a quasi-neighborhood park. So that is still our T-ball location. There's a tennis court, and there's an existing playground. We've expanded this into 1 lot. That includes the new detention that is there on Warwick Avenue as well. So that is all part of park property. And one thing I will add as a general information, that the next series of agenda items we're going to talk about are all inherently connected. And the fact that in terms of requests from the community, capital needs, desire for additional recreational activities by many in the community, and a 2-year conversation of looking at opportunities and how are we going to accommodate all these needs and these requests. And again, so they all kind of tie together even though they stand alone as individual agenda items. So the first thing I want to show here is the site plan for Fritz Worley Park. To the north is Trauby Street, and to the east, Warwick Avenue. You can see the T-ball field there at the north, the existing tennis courts. Detention basin is down at the south end of the parcel. And what I have here, this was an earlier iteration when we started the process. We've eliminated this idea here of adding pickleball courts. All we want to do at this point is create an interior pathway loop for walking and add a picnic shelter, another small open-air picnic shelter near the playground and the tennis courts.
So that pathway loop would go through the X, it would not go up and around
Yeah,
as
it would
as
not, no
depicted.
longer go up and around, it would
Got
just
it.
go through
Thank you.
in that general area. In fact, many years ago, there was a quasi-picnic shelter here at this property, one in this same location. The old Village Water Department well house was located on this park property, and that's where we used to get some of our village water from that well pump. And on it, the village, for the park district, built a little picnic shelter. When the pump was abated and pulled, so was the entire structure. We'd like to actually bring back something that existed years ago. So very, very simple improvements. It would complete the park, and that's what we're looking to do.
Okay. Staff?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So some of my comments, I'm going to try to edit because a lot of these next requests are very similar. So what this is an existing park that never had a special use approved on it. So basically, it predates our rules for special uses. So what we asked the Park District to do was establish that special use, and then those special conditions that we talked about on the first park, make them applicable in this as well. So although the request before us is pretty simple, it's add a picnic shelter and a pathway. This time, the Park District has to come in and get approval, but if they were doing a similar project, once they get these special conditions, would not need to come back and see us, because it would meet all those conditions of just go get the necessary permits because you're not dramatically changing programming and the structure meets primary setbacks. So basically, that's what he's here before us to do, establish that special use, establish the special conditions so we can change the programming. It's very similar to some of the next few you're going to see come through.
Thank you. Anyone from the public like to address this? Seeing none, we'll go to the commissioners. Commissioner Scales, let's start.
Thank you again for the presentation. No comments from me or questions.
Commissioner Lavoy.
I also have no comments.
Commissioner Peterson.
Why did you take the pickleball court out? Because we don't have it, well, I know at the one park you're planning it, but we don't have any in town, do we?
We do not have any permanent outdoor pickleball courts. We have a couple tennis courts that we've striped for multi-purpose use, but it's not a perfect situation. The pickleballers want their own. And after we created this plan and had this idea, had a light bulb moment, and we'll talk about that one later.
Okay, thanks.
Commissioner Thomas.
No, no questions. Thank you.
I have no questions. The chair would entertain a motion to approve public hearing PZC 0362023, special use permit request to allow an existing park, associated facilities and new improvements, including an open shelter and pathways in the R3 Single Family Detached Residential District.
Motion, Scales.
Second, Peterson.
A motion, a second, discussion. Seeing none, roll call, please.
Mr. Lavoy?
Yes.
Thomas is yes. Scales?
Yes.
And Peterson?
Yes.
And Chairman?
Yes. All right, that passes. Next agenda item is public hearing PZC 0372023, We have two requests from the Westmont Park District regarding the property located at 867 Blackhawk Drive, Jim Long Park in Westmont for the following. First, a zoning ordinance variance request to construct a maintenance garage within a required rear yard setback in the M manufacturing district. And second, site plan approval for a maintenance garage, relocation of a volleyball court, and the addition of 2 pickleball courts.
Okay. I'm going to
Mr.
start
Fleck.
with the satellite, what we're calling the satellite garage at James Long Park. James Long Park is actually split by Blackhawk Drive. At one time in the 80s, when this was subdivided, it was one simple square known as Lot 28. Lot 28 is now to the south of Blackhawk Drive, which has the lighted basketball courts, and we were left with this triangular shape to the north, which is where we have our parking lot for James Long Park. We actually own the rest of this sliver that is behind the fence and what looks like it's on Willowcrest Maintenance Yard, because it is. They're actually leasing that triangular piece from the Park District, from a original 1984 lease. For reference, what we want to do is build a equivalent of a 3-car structure, 3-car garage structure, right here off the turnaround within the parking lot. The reason we're doing this is Time Warner Park is got so much activity, has so much maintenance that is required. We have a separate crew that works north of Ogden Avenue. They take care of Time Warner Park, the fitness club property, and James Long Park plus Oakwood Park. They've been working out of that tiny little garage at the concession building, and it's less than ideal and not the safest. When they need a piece of equipment, they almost have to pull everything out to get a piece of equipment. We need something that allows us to be much more efficient, and then it will provide more space for the baseball association in that garage up there. So that's what we're looking to do. What this looks like for the garage is, again, this is the turnaround for the drive off the parking lot. A roughly 22 by 32 foot garage, 2 overhead doors, steel structure, and then a apron with a pad for our dumpsters. This garage would be bare bones. It will have electric. It will have a 1-inch water hose hookup. It will be insulated so we can have our equipment be able to be running during the winter time. So we'll just a wall-mounted electric heater. No restrooms, because we have those across the street at both parks. No office space, just small equipment. So our utility carts, a golf cart, the mower, that kind of equipment. That is what we're looking to do. And as I'm going to break this down just a little bit further as well, this is our property on what we have referred to as Parcel 6 for the plat of subdivision. This area, Subparcel 1, is our parking lot. Subparcel 2 is the proposed footprint for the garage space, which, in a sense, through a lease amendment, we will have to take back from Willowcrest Golf Course and Oak Brook Hills Hotel. We've already been in conversations with them. They have reviewed this information, have agreed to it, but we would have to create a lease amendment and have all this recorded with them. What remains is this Parcel 6 that they are then going to continue to lease from us for their maintenance purposes at the golf course. We would tap into the water main. The village water main is on an easement on our property that runs right through here as well. So it's a, there's a lot of things happening with this because of this lease agreement, but that's what we're looking to do. And yes, it meets front yard setback off Blackhawk Drive, but the variance would be for the building at the north end of our property. Across the street, James Long Park. To your question, Jill, this is where pickleball comes into play. Pickleball, we are in need of permanent outdoor pickleball courts. Ty Warner Park is a location we have striped those courts for multi-purpose use. We're very fortunate in Westmont that our pickleball players and our tennis players have coexisted quite nicely. That may not always be the case, because it is sure not the case in many other communities. However, they are starting to infringe on each other's time as the demand for pickleball continues to increase. Where can we put pickleball? They like parking. They like lighting, because some pickleball players work during the day and their only opportunity is to get out and play at night. Some definitely play during the day, and it is a sport that is spanning all generations. In fact, if you think, well, pickleball can't grow anymore, it may actually become an Illinois high school sanctioned sport in the next couple of years.
Yeah.
So we need to expand and provide that space. So right now, we have a sand volleyball court in this location just to the east of the shelter at the park, north of the existing basketball courts. We already have the infrastructure there. We have the restrooms, we have shade. We would eliminate the sand volleyball court, but relocate it just to the east of the basketball courts. It's not as wide as the two pickleball courts in its footprint, so we can make that fit here and still maintain the integrity of the existing detention basin. And then we can put in the two pickleball courts in this location. And that's our solution to solve part of the pickleball problem and solve our maintenance needs at James Long Park.
The lighting on those pickleball courts,
We have one
is that the
existing-
only, are the basketball courts lighted?
Yes, everything up there is lit. The only thing we would have to do is move one one light for the existing sand volleyball court and probably move it about another 25 feet to the east and be able to light the pickleball courts. And then all we have to do is turn a fixture from the basketball courts, and then we have a lit sand volleyball court.
That it?
That's it.
All right, sir. Staff comments?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I know that the burning question is, Joe, nothing on here mentions a special use, and you've been hammering on all these as special uses. So what's different about this project? The difference is this is not a residentially zoned area. This is an M district zoned area. Parks and recreation are permitted uses. They're not special uses here. What's different about this manufacturing or commercially zoned use is if you want to make any site changes, you have to get a site plan approval. So you heard Director Fleck mention site plan approval. So there's two things happening the way we look at it. And that is, one is they want to build a garage, which is allowed to be built. However, it has to meet those primary setbacks. Well, the setback to the north property line, which actually is being used by the golf course for their maintenance area, is 30 feet. The garage is proposed to be at 20 feet, so there's a 10-foot variance requested there. What you did here is that there is an existing lease, it's an agreement between the Park District and the golf course, and it's been negotiated that that is acceptable to the adjacent neighbor if it is granted. The other piece of that is the Park District wants to make some programming changes on the south side of the property, and that is move a sand volleyball court, introduce two pickleball courts, make some modifications to the lights that are there. So the request here is that variance and then site plan approval. That's the difference here. So that list of special use standards, that would not be applicable in this case because this is not a special use. And I can answer any questions if you have them.
All right, thank you. I think that's clear to everyone. Is there anyone from the public who'd like to address the commission on this? Seeing none, let's go to the commissioners.
Sure.
Let's start again, Matt.
Sure, thank you. Appreciate the presentation. I'm glad to see you took care of the pickleball players. I've heard the feud between them and tennis players just goes back and forth, back and forth. Sorry, they get better on Friday.
I got it.
The lighting question that you had, well, that was the only question I had, Doug. So you are going to light the volleyball court?
Yes, so again, there are, everything up there is already lit, and it's been lit since 1991.
All right, okay. That's all the questions I have. Thank you.
Do we have an agreement with the neighboring property owner to the south for the parking? Seems like, I go by there 100 times, not 100 times, but a lot of times during the day. When that park gets used at night, everybody parks in that parking lot, the commercial building to the south. Does that owner object to that?
Yeah, in fact, this past year, they installed a fence between the park and the parking lot and have extended that. There is clear signage up there that is private parking only. We do not encourage it by any means. You know, we do not control where people park, but that property owner has the right to control that parking lot as they see fit, as private property. So no, we do not have an agreement with them. That is why we have the parking across the street. And there is also on-street parking around Tywarner Park as
Got it.
well.
I just thought I'd ask, because that's where everybody parks. Second question is, with these improvements, Bob, adding the pickleball and making the other improvements, would you consider reclassifying this park to a community park? And the reason I ask that question is because I know people that want to rent those pavilions or want to rent Time Warner pavilions, and there's a waiting list or whatever it is, and that would be adequate because of the bathrooms that are there and the shelters that are there for small events. And would you consider that in the future?
We would consider that in the future with the parking that's across the street as well. We'd have to make it clear that that is what you're entitled to. I don't know if that will help the demand because people want Tywarner Park. That is the park they want to rent. That is the pavilion they want to be in. So we're always going to have that challenge.
Because I know people that wanted to rent that, and the park district would not allow them to rent those two pavilions for a small office party or whatever it might be.
Yeah.
A picnic event or something like that, and then it's no, and then, you know, it's first come, first serve, and so the reason why they ask is because everything else is booked up.
Sure. We absolutely can take that under consideration. It would be a smaller group for sure because of the limited parking and crossing the street.
Sure.
Yeah,
That makes sense to me with
consider
doing
that.
these improvements. I have no other questions.
All right, thank you. Commissioner Peterson. Commissioner Peterson,
I have nothing.
all right. Mr. Thomas.
I think that's where I parked when I went to look at your site.
Good thing they didn't tow you.
Yeah, I was quick. No questions, I agree.
Okay, thank you.
The lease with Willowcrest, does it have an expiration date?
Yeah, so it started in 1984 and it was for 99 years.
It should last most of us. You mentioned on the south side of the proposed garage to plant evergreen trees.
Yes.
They're not
Yeah,
on the
that's-
depiction. Can you kind of show us exactly what, it's outside the fence, or between the,
So in this general area, right here, in the sidewalk, existing Blackhawk sidewalk, it's roughly right here in this location. So yes, happy to plant evergreens.
okay. It seems like a good plan to me, well thought out. Commissioners, any other questions or comments? Chris?
Does that lease expire if the ownership changes?
If the what?
If the ownership of the golf course changes?
You know, unless I don't know, but typically leases are assignable to new owners, and I would doubt there's a provision in there about that. And in fact, ownership has changed.
Yes.
Over.
Yeah,
Over the
it goes with the property. Yeah, that if you're interested, that was created when the village actually owned the property, and it was all part of the development to bring in Oak Brook Hills Hotel and that golf course, which has been a great asset to the community.
Absolutely.
All right, then. Under public hearing, PZC 037-2023, request by the Westmont Park District regarding the property located at 867 Black Hawk Drive, James Long Park in Westmont. First, zoning ordinance variance request to construct a maintenance garage within a required rear yard setback in the M manufacturing district. Do I have a motion to approve?
Motion, Scales.
I'll second Lavoy.
Second, Lavoy. I have a motion and a second. Do we have further discussion, questions on the issue? Seeing none, roll call, please.
Mr. Lavoy,
Yes.
Thomas is yes. Scales.
Yes.
Ms. Peterson,
Yes?
Mr. Chairman.
Yes. And secondly, site plan approval for a maintenance garage, relocation of a volleyball court, and the addition of 2 pickleball courts.
Motion, Scales.
I have a motion to approve Scales. Do we have a
Second
second?
Lavoy.
Second, Lavoy. Discussion? Seeing none, roll call.
Mr. Lavoy,
Yes.
Thomas is yes. Scales,
Yes.
Ms. Peterson,
Yes.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes. And did you vote?
I did not. Thomas is yes.
Okay. That passes. Next item on the agenda, public hearing PZC 038-2023, request by the Westmont Park District regarding the property located at 300 West 59th Street, that is Diane Main Park, in Westmont for the following. A special use permit request to allow an existing park, associated facilities, and new improvements. That is to remove a daycare center, daycare facility, and replace it with a skate park in the R3 Single Family Detached Residential District. Mr. Fleck.
Okay. And this one is an example of what I was describing, where all these proposed improvements and demand for recreational needs and desires of the community are all inherently connected. Yes, we have a skate park. We call it a skate bike park because it satisfies, both needs. It's not exclusive to one type of use. At Bellery Park on 63rd Street. That park is 20 years old. It is aging out. It was a wood frame above ground structure that these are reaching the end of their useful life. We have repaired it and maintained it. And it's getting to the point where no matter what we do, we just can't fix it anymore. The company that built it was bought out by another company. So True Ride was bought out by Spahn Ranch out of California. Spahn Ranch will not build a park of that type anymore because they don't last as long. They've taken a beating. We would be looking at doing a concrete park with some above-ground structures as well, but something that is going to be more durable than last generations, can hold up to the wear and tear of, now add razor scooters to the mix, which are the majority of our use at the park. But then we also have the demand for pickleball, which we also have our area USA pickleball rep happens to live here in Westmont. We've been working with them for 2 years. And hearing their demands, and what we know about pickleball is they need infrastructure, they need lights, they need shade, they need bathrooms, and they need multiple courts. They come in groups, they play round robin. And if you don't do it, you're going to be doing it again, is what we've heard from all our other friend park districts, what we've heard at conferences, and where can we provide that? And eventually we started seeing the dots connect. Well, Bellery Park has all the infrastructure, has the lights, has the parking, and would eliminate the potential issue of the noise of the clicking of the ball in that location as compared to some residential locations. Well, what do we do at the skate park? Well, there will always be a skate park in Westmont. The kids and now some young adults that still do this for recreational activity deserve this as much as anybody deserves a pickleball court or a tennis court or a basketball court. Diane Main Park, and we've looked at all our properties. We've evaluated what's available, footprints, been at the drafting table quite a bit, looking at these over the last 2 years, and came to the realization, and we did look at pickleball at this site too, but we can only put 2 pickleball courts at this location at Diane Main Park. We just can't fit anymore because of this narrow shape that it has to it. That old facility that's there, we haven't run a preschool out of there since 2020. And we will not be bringing it back to that for a number of reasons. That is actually the original shelter from the 1970s. So they put walls on it at some point and added bathrooms to it when there was a tennis bubble over the tennis courts at the old Twin Lakes Park, which is now Diane Main Park. That's how it became an enclosed structure. We're not going to operate that in that fashion anymore. So our proposal is to, again, connect all these dots, remove the old preschool, move pickleball to Bellery Park, and then move the skate bike park to this location here at Diane Main Park. As part of this, right now, and this is just a graphic representation right now, do not commit to what this looks like. However, some of the features in here we would want to include. But one of the things we would absolutely do is there would be a 4-foot fence with a gate all the way around this particular amenity. We would never want a child coming off the path or the parking lot and walking into the skate park. It just makes sense that we want to protect not only those that are in it, but protect those that are outside it as well. And there would be a simple light, couple lights here to help illuminate it for use in the evening. And that's what we're proposing. And
Where would could you show us where the entrance or entrances would be then?
logically, I would think
if
the
there's a
entrance
fence
would
around
be
the
here on the south side, closer to the parking lot.
parking lot where the sidewalk, okay.
Yeah, but that, we haven't gotten into full design of this yet.
Yeah, interesting. Staff comments?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So this is similar to some of those other ones. So there's not a special use that's established for Diane Main Park. Part of this is establishing that special use with those special conditions. Really, it is just the removal of a building, which was the daycare center, and replacement with the skate park. So I did hear some questions on, you heard Director Fleck say, don't hold us to this design. This is not a site plan approval. So what's not required in the residential districts is site plan approval. Basically, he'd be operating within the special use conditions that say, as long as it meets setback and as long as it's not a dynamic shift in programming that causes a parking, requirement. This is not a site plan approval, it's representational in this case. So, very similar to some of the other ones, and it kind of segues into the Bellerive discussion, which will be next. So.
Understood.
Can I add a couple more
Absolutely.
tidbits of information? Another thing we have here is Park Patrol at this location. So we have Park Patrol that works here basically May through Halloween at this park site. They work on the weekends, they work in the evenings as well. So they have a golf cart that is dedicated for that use to patrol Diane Main Park and Smith Woods. They are there to not only just help make sure everything is safe and locked up and report issues, but they are there to also enforce our rules with the assistance of the Westmont Police Department. So again, Park Patrol is there at this location. That will be a help. Secondly is, when we did the original skate park, that wasn't a Park District idea. That was an idea of our residents, the youth of Westmont. We had a group of about 75 high school students that were led by about 7 or 8 students that led the charge, came to the Park District with a proposal and some designs and some information that really justified their need to have this recreational outlet. And the park board, without hesitation, said, absolutely, we need to pursue this. We need to make this happen for you. 3 of those individuals are still in the area and have been in contact with us and are going to be working again with now a new group of kids. We had about 20 of them at our meeting last month, at the park board meeting, to be a part of this and to have that involvement and go through the process. None of us know anything about what they call boarding and shredding and the lines that are involved in it. So these kids would be going through the process with us and with Spahn Ranch to help create the design for this. So it's a very exciting opportunity to see that interest and see these kids have that experience working through the public process. And it's really unique and special that 3 of the original are still involved, still using the facility, and will be part of the process again.
Cool.
Thank you. So, you bet. Good evening, sir.
How are you? I'm Nick Arvidas. I live right about there.
Okay, we're not seeing that. So what's your address?
251 James Drive. So my
James
backyard.
Grave, so you're into the north? And
Yeah. The third house from the corner right here.
Yes.
So a few things. One, yeah, I'm totally in agreement to tear that building down. It's useless there. And, you know, putting something else there recreational. Now, a few things I'll argue is putting a skate park there and relying on the park patrol to patrol it is not gonna work. Right now, the residents do most of the patrolling of the park. People smoking at the benches, people fighting, arguing, leaving trash all over. That's a big part of the residents that live there dealing with that. So I wouldn't say that the park patrol is gonna help manage what goes on at a skate park. And so I would say that if the skate park is old on 63rd Street, then rebuild there, because I do think it should be a part of the community, but putting it in this park doesn't make sense. I have 2 little boys. I would love for them to have a skate park, but they can ride up to 63rd Street. That's not a problem. I think if we're gonna look at this park for recreational use, I would say expand the adult use. Most of this neighborhood and the neighborhood back there would love to have pickleball courts or some sort of adult recreation that they could walk to from that neighborhood and get to there. Putting the pickleball courts at 63rd Street means all of the residents have to drive there because nobody lives there. So if we're talking about a park and the park usage, it is primarily used, if you take the kids' sports out, by adults. And so right now we have 4 tennis courts. You could convert that into probably 2 of those into 4 pickleball courts, plus the 2 you add from tearing down the building. Now you've got 6 pickleball courts there, and you've got a use that all generations in that neighborhood could use, not just the kids. And we also take out some of the element that comes with a skate park and unsupervised teenagers at this park, which would then fall again on the residents that live there, like some of the other issues we already deal with.
All right.
So in support of changing this, but I think it should be something that families can enjoy, not just kids and teenagers. And it also, putting a skate park, we don't know the impact it would have on resale values of the homes that back up to that park. Thank you.
Yep, thank you. Mr. Fleck, would you like to respond?
Sure. A couple comments on that. We always appreciate the extra eyes and ears of our residents, and we want that at all our parks. If there are issues, if there is something serious, call the police. Absolutely. We have a great relationship with them. They want to know what's going on in our parks. The tennis courts that are there are our most popular tennis courts. I think it would be a disservice to those individuals that enjoy the game of tennis to take that away from them. In turn, we would then hear the opposite of this particular question, why you take our tennis courts away. And skate park is for, this park is for everyone, not just adults. I appreciate the comments, and again, if there's things happening there, call the police, they want to know about it. I've talked to you only a couple times, and it's been a long while.
Thank you. Ma'am, would you like to, good evening.
My name is Wendy Hable, and I'm at the corner.
Okay, speak into the.
I'm at the end of our James Drive Street. And I've lived there longer than anybody, like 40 years. And I know Diane, Maine is a community park, but it's also has a lot of our neighborhood, Newfield Manor, and a whole lot of us right there on the end. The Park Patrol was a great idea. They really, honestly, don't do too much. Even when they see kids throwing rocks at ducks or whatever, by the time we call the police, that kid has hit the road because he's done throwing rocks at the ducks, and that's just one example I'm telling you. But back to the park district and the skate park. Is it going to be lit? Where'd you go?
Yes.
Is it going to be lit at night, the skate park? Till what time? Do you have an idea?
10 o'clock.
Okay. And I know this just affects really those of us that are on James Drive, but for us, a lot of times, that 10 o'clock time, we understand the baseball field, the big baseball field going on. But all the rest of it allows kids and young adults, and sometimes not so young adults, to be in that park at night, being loud, being silly, throwing things. You can hear them jumping on trees and ripping things down. Loud music coming from the shelter when you have a permit. I mean, they have a permit to have a party there. But at 10 o'clock at night, when you're trying to use your backyard, and there's music blasting with big, speakers, that's just too much. I'm glad to hear if you go through at the skate park that it has a fence around it, because one of my concerns was that kids in the skate park are going to be doing ollies and 360s and toe flips on the path. And we have enough problems on the path with kids coming by and adults with motorized bicycles and, all that motorized stuff is becoming a real problem, at least at Diane Main Park, because they about run you down, and we have a lot of families there. It's a really used park, and it's great, but there's a lot of kids that run around, like just running around being kids, and people with dogs and doing stuff, and then we have all this zooming around. So if we don't, at least there'll be a 4-foot fence, if you go through with it, that'll keep the kids hopefully on skate, because they're going to skateboard to the park. There's no doubt about that. They're not going to walk politely with their skateboards in their hands, to get there. They can be rather rowdy, and I raised 2 kids that are 40-some years old that were skaters. I know what it can be like to have kids on skateboards all over the place, running around, and then they scoot out from under you and they're flying down the... So that is a concern, and the noise level is a concern. We have a lot of noise in that park, and like I said, that 10 o'clock thing, I wish it was 9 o'clock, other than, like a big baseball game that's there all the time, or if you have a special party going on there, maybe they could not have music after 9 o'clock and stay till 10 and sit and party all they want then. So, and like I said, the park patrol, it's a nice job to have. I'd like to have it. And because it doesn't stop anybody, those kids, they're right behind our houses. They're hiding behind my fence, right, and they're yelling and screaming and eating and throwing stuff all over the place. So it's a problem.
Let me be more clear about the hours.
Yeah.
And the lights. What I did not share, and this is what we do at Bellary Park right now. It is 10 PM only from Memorial Day to Labor Day. It's 9 PM the rest of the time. So only 9 PM lights go off the rest of the year.
Yeah, I know, but still, that's when we want to be outside in our backyards too. It's like when it's nice outside. So, I mean, I think 10 is a little much, other than the baseball games, that's, you know, once in a while thing.
I will take that
But
concern back to the park
That's
board.
yeah. And like I said, the park patrol is a nice idea. I remember with the basketball courts, we had police there in the beginning because there was some issues. And then we switched to park patrol. And they drive around very nicely, but nobody gives them any credence of, and many of them truly just drive by and look at what's going on and keep on driving, because we've called them on it.
And you brought up the electric
Yeah.
bikes and scooters and
Yeah,
things.
and I know that's a problem
It-
everywhere.
It is a problem, and our conduct ordinance reflects that those, because of how fast they go, and there are, at other parks, I'll use Ty Warner Park, Veterans Memorial Park, kids that are on some of these little bikes that look like they are mini bikes, but they're just bicycles with an electric motor on it. They're actually prohibited on our pathways and in our parks for the reasons you just described. They do go too fast.
Then how does the park patrol stop them?
Well, I know, they go faster than a golf cart.
Yes, they
And
do.
Park Patrol is not allowed
And by the
to
time
chase.
you call the police, they're zoomed
Yeah.
over. I mean,
It's-
we have mini bikes and little 50cc motorcycle kids coming through that park.
And I think
sometimes.
some of the things
And I
you
have called
described
police.
happen more in the woods because it's the woods.
Well, it's all over, Rob. I mean, we had to stop the kids from stealing.
Please, into the microphone.
We had to stop kids from stealing the water fountain this year, inside the actual pond.
I'm aware of that.
I'm saying we should do something, and I'm in support of doing something, but bringing in a lot more kids and a lot more older kids is not the answer for that park. I think bringing in a family-based activity, which pickleball is a great answer to that, more tennis courts, whatever you know, want to throw out there, but adding more teenagers that are unsupervised to this area at the experience level we've had with supervision is not going to go well with the residents. And you've got residents all over there. Pick something that will fit well with all age groups so that we have parents with kids and people doing things there, not just more kids. I think 63rd Street works great for the Park District. There's no residents there. I never hear about problems there. I never see cop cars there. And Wendy's got a great point. Unless the Park Patrol is going to start actually being able to enforce, stop, actually arrest kids, like, they're not getting caught. They're gone by the time the cops can make it there. And when the cops do make patrols, they're gone. I mean, it's not hard to get away there. So so the repeat behaviors are not going away. And so I think adding more of that level of kids is just going to add more headache for everybody that lives over there, where you could in turn make everybody happier with something that could be shared by everybody there.
Thank you.
I just want to respond to the, maybe the perception that there's an element at Diane Main Park. These are nuisance issues. Every community deals with nuisance issues, and we could have the same conversations at Ty Warner Park or Veterans Memorial Park. And it happens, in, pardon? Veterans Memorial Park. We've got a neighbor right here at Veterans Memorial Park. So we're not describing anything that doesn't happen anywhere else. Kids are kids. Happens in every community. And one of the reasons, we are more proactive than all of our other neighbors because nobody else has a park patrol program. At least we have something.
Thank you. Good evening.
Hi, I'm Lisa Ryan. I actually live, as Bob said, my house backs up to Veterans Park. I live on South Wilmette. But I did grow up at 223 James Drive, which is right across from the preschool that I went to preschool at, that's going to be torn down. My parents still live there. They're elderly, and I'm sure the house will stay in the family. So, not sure when I'll be back, but I have a rhetorical question. Does anybody know 3 skateboarders that visit a skate park? Okay, you don't have to answer that. The skate park on 63rd is great. I have no idea how much it's used. Whenever I'm over there, I don't see a lot of people using it. I know that the average age of a skateboarder is a 14-year-old boy. I also know that the people that go to a skate park and use the ramp, they're considered course skateboarders, not a casual skateboarder. A course skateboarder skates once a week, so 52 times a year. That area, that park is very, very crowded all the time. We have tennis courts. People are always using the tennis courts. They're always using the basketball courts. My daughters play softball right back there. A lot of little kids up to big kids. There's always people strolling through the park, you know, feeding the ducks and fishing over there. And having a skate park there where the average age of those that use it are 14-year-old boys, that's fine, but I feel like the residents that surround that area, first of all, the tax-paying residents that surround that area are those that are going to be affected, not the other residents that surround that area that are renewing a lease every year, you know, living in those apartments. And I think that that's where you're going to get a lot of your attendance from if you do make it a skate park. Pickleball, Bob is awesome. Backing up to my house, we have the tennis courts, and they have the temporary lines for pickleball. It's only 2 courts, and I love to hear that ping of the ball, you know, just like the baseball, and there's a need for the pickleball. I think it's great to have those pickleball courts on 63rd Street. I think that it would be a huge benefit to have just 2 pickleball courts instead of a ramp, a skate park. I think that it will be utilized by the more permanent residents in that area in the Newfield Manor subdivision. Also, I wanted to point out that skate park is not going to be used all year, so it's going to be probably an eyesore. I remember the bubble growing up. Well, the bubble was great. At least it provided something to do over the winter. You know, we were able to play tennis in there over the winter. The skate park is not going to be able to be used over the winter. It's just going to be there. So I would suggest to you, and maybe all of you, just really consider who it's going to be affecting, the long-term residents that surround, you know, that are on the south side of James Drive there, most of which have been there for 30-plus years, 50 years since you know, those houses have been built. So that's all I wanted to say.
Thank you very much.
Take these comments back to the park board and share their concerns.
All right. Is there anyone else from the public who would like to address this? Well, thank you. Let's go to the commissioners. So, Matt, start again.
Sure. I appreciate the presentation again and the comments from everyone on the skateboard. I don't really have any questions currently. Hear what everybody else has to say.
Commissioner Lavoie.
Well, I guess what we didn't really talk about, Mr. Fleck, is, of course, these all come to us all together, and maybe you could share with all of us the overall master plan and why you came to the conclusions that you did for this particular location, about a relocation of the skate park, and why your experts have decided that the pickleball would be good on 63rd Street.
Pickleball, again, they come in large groups. 2 courts is insufficient for the demand. Again, as I said, they play round robin. It's a big social event. You put in 2 courts, it's just not going to meet what they've been asking for. And again, we've been talking to pickleballers and then our area rep for USA Pickleball for almost 2 years now. And it's been very clear, they need that infrastructure. If not, they will be at our park board meetings in mass, demanding changes. In fact, we know many area neighboring park districts that have built pickleball courts and they're already going back a year or 2 years later and expanding and adding to meet all these demands. Parking, lights, restrooms, shade. Bellary Park has all that. We know we also have a need to upgrade and create a new skate park. How do we accomplish all these things? And the amount of cars that are going to come from pickleball are going to far surpass what would come to a skate park. And that was really the impetus behind this proposal and this change of location.
I think that's important because you just didn't come to this conclusion on a whim here. This is something that's been really been in the oven baking for a while with all the different components that influence these decisions. And these are design professionals that are coming up with these answers based on all of that input. And I support the petition here for that. I realize I hear a lot of comments related to the activities in the park that really aren't going to change much because there's a lot of activity there because it's a great park.
What the park has become is a positive. It's an asset. You know, we did our first, I don't want to get off tangent and off script, but in 2007, we got another grant to redevelop that park. Prior to 2007, the park was in, it was declining. It was declining in its infrastructure, in the amenities that were there. It did not look very good. And as was mentioned earlier, the police were there often. That has changed and changed dramatically. It is a true community park that is used often, and it's again, it's a great thing. It's something to be proud of.
Thank you.
Any kind of concern about maybe that park patrol that's there about addressing some of these concerns?
We work with Park Patrol and they're part-time employees. There are some that are going to just be more effective than others as a part-time employee. And they are limited in terms of what they can and cannot do to enforce our rules. Extremely limited, unfortunately. But being there to report and address and then call in the police when needed, it allows us to be more proactive and circumvent a lot more problems that might otherwise occur.
Okay, public comment is closed. Commissioner Peterson?
I have no questions or comments. Thanks, Bob.
Mr. Thomas?
When I first read the packet and went around to look, my first thing was, well, after I read it, why rip up this skate park and for the skaters and put it over here where you already have the skaters know where it's at and blah, blah, blah. And put it up there and put pickleball where the skate park was. And then I got the packet and saw what your plans were for the new skating area. and it's not just that squared off skate that's on 63rd. I like it the way your proposal is. It makes more sense to me than why put pickleball down there where no one knows where it was at. And of course, like you said, if you did put it down there, the group would follow. But the way you have this by 59th Street is an expansion of that. And the skaters will be able to do more activities, more skating areas. And as director, you have to deal with the employees and what they can do and what they cannot do as reporting bad behavior or whatever, you know. That's what you will have to do and address that, because it needs to be addressed apparently. And but I like this design, and it makes more sense to me now than I did initially, and I support it. Good. That's all.
Thank you. Regarding the misbehavior and need for policing or park patrolling, have you had any history or need for that at the skateboard park down on 63rd Street over the years?
We've had it at every park.
So there has been park patrol at Bella Reef?
Mm-hmm.
Oh.
Mm-hmm.
And in your experience with comparing Diane Main Park and Bella Reef Park, neighbors' complaints, need for calls for police is?
Very few.
Okay, so you're saying?
I've had more challenges at Veterans Memorial Park than I've had at Bella Reef Park.
How about, just curiously with skateboarding, Park District have liability if there accidents when someone falls and is hurt?
It is no different than a basketball court or a baseball field. Same liability. In fact, the injuries are fewer at the skate park, surprisingly. But the kids, they know what they can and cannot do, and when there's something they can't do, they work to that level. They don't just go out and jump off the highest thing, and if they've never done it before, they build up to it.
And to the neighbors, I live on 59th Street, and I certainly, those tennis courts at Diane Main are the busiest that I've seen in Westmont.
Mm-hmm.
And I wonder if the people on James, if there were pickleball courts there. I know all over the United States, people are complaining about that. Ma'am, you said you like that sound. I think the common neighbor reaction to that noise is they get sick and tired of it real fast, and there are more complaints than there are anything else. So.
You want to put pickleball courts at 63rd Street and keep the skate park there, we can do that. But what you're ignoring here is a more pressing issue.
We can't hear.
So maybe put it to a vote of the people that live in that neighborhood and see what they want.
Well, that's, the job of this board is to take the testimony and weigh it, and we've heard the specifics of your. But parks are parks, and
No more public comment.
Yeah.
So, not to be rude, but the procedures are that once,
Apparently not.
but once the public comments close, then it's time for the commissioners to talk, because the commissioners gave you the benefit of making all the comments you wanted to make. So we're just trying to be fair. And now it's time for the commissioners to deliberate without having audience members yell back and forth with the public. And the meeting's recorded, and it's important to capture the comments, and we can't record you from back there. And as I said, the public comments closed, so we'd appreciate your cooperation in allowing the commissioners to talk amongst themselves, ask questions of the Park District Executive Director.
Well, and I see overall that the plan through all these parks, has been extensive. It's obvious the amount of work that the district has put into this, and I think this is integral, and I hear the complaints, but I think overall it's positive. And so under PZC 038, request by the Park District regarding the property at 300 West 59th Street, Diane Main Park. Request for a special use permit to allow an existing park, associated facilities, and new improvements. That is to remove a daycare facility and replace with a skate park in the R3 Single Family Detached Residential District. Do I have a motion to approve?
I'll go motion to approve. Lavoy.
Lavoy, motion to approve. Chair, have a second?
Peterson.
Peterson seconds. Further discussion?
The only thing I might add is just throwing out some additional, just listening to the concerns and comments, which I
Yes.
can appreciate, with just regard to, I don't know what the answer is, but some level of consideration for policing and maybe policing is the wrong term, but patrolling, the park patrol, whatever they may have, but giving some extra consideration for that. Again, open for comments from everybody, but sounds like that's a
But when you say extra consideration, what do you mean?
I don't know.
I can answer one, and I neglected to mention this too, and this will be posted. The facility will be under surveillance. There will be a camera there. And that would be posted.
Well, that would seem to make sense to me.
Like a live feed? Is it a live feed? Something
It's recorded. Staff, if needed, would have the ability to log in and look at a live feed. But, yeah, we are making the accommodations to have that surveillance on this facility.
I mean, I think that's a step, so that's an idea. It's something that's helpful.
Yeah. Okay, no further? Roll call, please.
Okay. Mr. Lavoy?
Yes.
Thomas is yes. Scales?
Yes.
Peterson?
Yes.
And Chairman Carmichael.
I say yes. So, motion passes. Next agenda item is public hearing PZC 039. We have 4 requests by the Westmont Park District regarding the property located at 201 West 63rd Street, that is Bella Reeve Park in Westmont, for the following. First, special use permit request to allow an existing park, associated facilities, and new improvements, that is to remove a skate park and replace with pickleball courts in the R1 Single Family Detached Residence District. Secondly, a special use permit request for an electronic message board sign, which will replace an existing monument sign. Third, a zoning ordinance variance request to increase the maximum gross surface area of an electronic message board sign. And fourth, a zoning ordinance variance request to allow an electronic message board sign within a required front lot line setback. Mr. Fleck.
Okay. Mr. Hannafine, this is our last one, right?
I hope so.
Yeah, it is. Okay. Again, Bella Reeve Park. What's shown in red here at the north end, closest to 63rd, is the footprint for the skate park. the current skate bike park. The proposal is to maintain that footprint. That particular concrete slab was reinforced with rebar. We had added fly ash into it so it would cure a certain way and never crack. So far, there are still no cracks in that surface. It lends it, and it's very flat. It lends itself well to being converted for pickleball. We would leave the perimeter fence in place, and we can accommodate 6 pickleball courts at this location. So that is the first item. Secondly is, we've been talking about a digital sign for quite a few years for the Park District. Been looking for an opportunity, and we believe 63rd Street is the best fit. We don't have a presence down there with some of the information, and it would be a digital sign that we would share use of with the village as well, and a library, of course, too. We are presently near the water tower off the, what would be the northwest corner of the skate park. We have a park monument sign shown in this red box right here. Our intent is to erect a digital sign in lieu of the park monument sign in the exact same location and replace it with a double-sided 4x8 digital sign with a Park District sign sitting atop. And that's what we're looking to do at Bella Reef Park.
Is that top of that Westmont Park District lighted?
It would be backlit.
The top, the top is.
Backlit.
Thank you. Proceed.
That's all I have.
All right. Staff.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So basically, there's two essential requests that are here for us. The first is very similar to the last ones. There was no special use ever established on Bella Reef Park. There was the establishment of that special use. There's a change of programming that is proposed, and that is the removal of the skate park and then the introduction of pickleball, basically on the same area that the skate park exists now, in the fenced area that's already lit. Just a correction, because I know there was a statement that was made. There is residential right next door to this. Suffield Court, Suffield Gardens is right there. It's a condominium project that recently turned to apartments. So there is residential next to this property. It's not all commercial. The second piece of that is governmental entities have the right to ask for a electronic message board sign when they are in a residential district. And even though this is mostly commercial along 63rd, the actual park and then the golf course that's owned by the county is zoned residential, R1 residential, which is not uncommon for parks and golf courses to be. They can get a electronic message board sign through a special use process. So basically, so that we examine and can regulate, if necessary, the operation of that. So we've seen that recently with, I think, the high school, or maybe it was the junior high, they got one recently. And that's in a purely residential area. This is a little bit different because it is on 63rd. Next, parks have their own subset of signage rules. One of those is that there's a 15-foot setback. Where Bob is showing it under the water tower, it would be at a 7-foot setback. One thing Bob did not mention that is part of your presentation is there is the preferred location for this sign, which is underneath the water tower here. And then there is an alternate. And why is there an alternate? There is actually a utility easement all the way around that water tower. For Bob to construct the sign, or for the Park District to construct the sign, there will need to be a vacated area for that sign to be constructed. We're not 100% confident that's going to happen or can happen. If I'm misquoting, you can always tell me. So there is a secondary location. There is a second map that's in here that shows the sign basically in front of the skate park. Well, there's a fence that's there, there's concrete that's there. It pushes the sign a little bit closer to the street. It pushes it 3 feet from the property line. Now, what I always like to do is give you a comparison. So we're use Mariana's across the street. It's a commercially zoned property in the same area. They've got a lot of frontage. They could have upwards of a 250 square foot sign, electronic message board sign that is 5 feet from the property line, because that's what commercial properties are allowed to do. So being residential on the other side of the street is a hindrance in this case. 63rd Street is a fast street. It's 35 miles an hour. I don't think anyone actually goes that slow. So, you know, having the signage closer to the street makes it more visible. And then lastly, because this is a park district in a residential area, the allowance for signage for this property would only be set 27 square feet. I believe what Bob is requesting is 48 square feet. Basically an increase in the size of the sign. Because you are driving so fast, you need to have some visibility. As a frame of reference, the electronic message board signs that the village has at the fire department and library, those are 10 by 10. The one that Bob is proposing, and this is just the message board area, is 4 by 8. So part of this is the park district establishing their special use for the park. The other is, how do they get permission to have an electronic message board sign? And just like any other message board signs in the village, there are a subset of requirements of what they are allowed to display. It's a 5-second changeover, which means you can't have animation, you can't have movies. The park district would have to abide by all the same things that you'll see on the other signs as well. And I'm always available for questions.
And no third-party advertising is allowed, other than a governmental, local
Yes,
governmental entity?
Yes, so whereas the park district can advertise their activities and joint activities, you know, with the village of Westmont, very similar to the way we use the library. The library has many different types of the governmental things announced there, but the park district would not be allowed to, you know, sell time to Coca-Cola to advertise on the sign, so.
Okay, thank you. Anyone from the public like to address the issue? And let's go to the commissioners. And, Matt, you've been doing a good job starting. Would you
I've made it
keep
very
going?
easy. Yeah, no, I don't have any comments or questions. And to me, the sign is fine where it is as well, on both of the locations that are noted.
I believe, I would probably think it might be good to amend the motion, John, you can, to say that only one of the two site plans can be constructed. So we're obviously proposing a preferred and an alternate, perhaps making the statement that says that the alternate can only be executed if the preferred can't be constructed.
Fair enough. The motion hasn't been made yet, correct?
That's
No.
correct. But when you're saying it's the petitioner's preferred.
Yeah, option one and option
Not the
two.
board's preferred.
It's, the petitioner nor staff are 100% confident that the utility easement can be vacated, because it's not just the utility easement to the village of Westmont for their water tower, it's actually a public utility easement. ComEd, Nicor, all the public utilities have rights to it as well. So there's a lot of permissions they have to get in order to vacate the square where they want to put
We don't
their
believe
sign.
they have any interest in it. It's just the way the easement was written with standard language as a public utility easement, even though it was really just for the water tower.
So the site in front of the existing sign in front of the water tower is your preferred choice.
It is.
But if you are, for one reason or another,
We're
unable to
stonewalled.
do that, the alternative, and we could vote saying, yes, we support that contingent, that if you can't do one, then you can do the other. We don't have to do two separate
I think it
votes.
simplifies it, yes.
Have you julied that easement to determine?
Sure have.
And nothing's in there?
Nope. Well, I mean, yeah, there are, gas goes to the water tower, but it is sufficient distance away from our sign. electric goes to the water tower. It is, got to be 30, 40 feet from our sign, well enough away.
Okay, so where are we?
LaVoy.
Next, Chris?
Bob, do you see any need for additional parking because of the 6 pickleball courts?
No, because the parking that we have there now doesn't get used that much.
Okay.
A lot of parking
A lot of parking, yeah, we have actually 2 parking lots at this park.
Okay, I have no further questions.
Thank you. Commissioner Peterson?
I have nothing, thank you.
Nothing.
Nothing.
Okay. Commissioner Thomas?
No, it makes sense to me. I have no questions.
I got a question on the fencing. Pickleball is, obviously, we can't have a situation where pickleballs, the wiffle ball, I know doesn't go far, but any chance of it going over the fence line to 63rd Street in strong south winds or anything?
I honestly can't tell you definitively one way or the other. I'm not a pickleball player, but again, that's an 8-foot fence we've got around there. And
It
I
is
think
an
that's-
8-foot
That
fence,
is higher
yeah.
than what
Well,
most
pickleballs are not like
courts have.
racquetballs or tennis balls. They're not a
Right,
hot,
right.
okay,
You're gonna give up racquetball and play pickleball?
when I get old.
Good answer.
And is this 5 courts or 6 courts?
6, so 3 on the north, 3 on the south.
Okay, I thought it was 5.
I know, that was I just discovered that it did have a typo, it's 6.
Okay. Are all 5 of these projects in your fiscal '24 or your Westmont, your Park District budget for, see, there's a lot of money there,
Yeah,
gonna
well,
be thrown out on.
actually, the money was dedicated towards one larger project that we just, as we continued to evaluate it, just didn't fit. It wasn't the right fit. And that was actually an expansion of Fritz Worley Park, which, believe it or not, I won't go into detail, but as Attorney Zemanek knows, ties all the way back to the natatorium and loss of open space for the natatorium. And so, yes, this has been in the works for a number of years. So we did in 2022, in April, we extended our debt service, so we issued new debt and obtained quite a bit of money, $4.78 million in bonds for a number of capital improvements, the largest being the new building at Veterans Memorial Park.
Yes.
And it involved many other improvements that were needed in this playgrounds and other things as well.
Oh, well, thank you. Any other board comments, questions? John?
Nope.
Then, under public hearing PZC 039, we have 4 requests to vote on. First, special use permit request to allow an existing park, associated facilities, and new improvements to remove a skate park and replace with 6 pickleball courts in the R1 Single Family Detached Residence District.
Motion.
I have a motion to approve Scales.
Second, LaVoy.
Second, Lavoy. Further discussion on the item? Seeing none, roll call, please.
Mr. Lavoy?
Yes.
Thomas says yes. Scales?
Yes.
Ms. Peterson?
Yes.
Chairman Carmichael?
Yes. Next request is a special use permit for an electronic message board sign to replace an existing monument sign.
Mr. Chair, I
Yes.
believe this would be the one we'd want to amend the motion to state that only one of the 2 site plans can be constructed, because this is a special use that sets up the sign.
Yep.
Correct.
I'll make the motion with the amendment.
Second.
All right, that's fine, okay. I have a motion and a second. Discussion, seeing none, roll call.
Okay, hold on. Who did the motion?
LaVoy
Lavoy, motion.
with the amendment.
with the amendment.
Where would I put the amendment?
You can leave it for now. I have it. You're good.
Okay. But he's going to have the amendment.
Yeah, so
Where's that go on here, though?
that's, no, you don't have to worry
It
about
would just be under number 2.
Yeah, okay.
You would just do the roll.
You want it on 2?
Yep.
Okay.
All right. Read some names.
Okay, let's see. Van Buren?
Okay.
He's not here. Lavoy?
Yes.
Thomas is yes. Scales?
Yes.
And Peterson?
Yes.
And Chairman Carmack?
Yes. Third request is a zoning ordinance variance to increase the maximum gross surface area of an electronic message board sign.
Motion.
Motion to approve Scales,
Second, Lavoy.
second Lavoy. Discussion? Seeing none, roll call.
Okay, Lavoy?
Yes.
Thomas is yes. Scales?
Yes.
Peterson?
Yes.
Chairman Carmichael?
Yes. And fourth request is zoning ordinance variance to allow an electronic message board sign within a required front lot line setback.
Motion, Scales.
Second, Lavoy.
Motion is second. Discussion? Seeing none, roll call.
Mr. Lavoy?
Yes.
Thomas is yes. Scales?
Yes.
Ms. Peterson?
Yes.
Chairman Carmichael?
Yes. Okay, Mr. Fleck, you have our recommendation, and I believe, did you say this would be scheduled on 11 January?
There's a good possibility that the December 28th board will be canceled. So we're just letting everyone know that it's probably January 11th, but once I find out,
Okay,
that's when you'll go. So
all right, that should be okay. I'll double check those dates. And sincerely, thank you for your time tonight. It was a long evening, and appreciate the feedback.
Okay,
Thanks, Matt.
thank you. Good
All right,
night.
thank you all.
Okay, I'd like to ask everybody's opinion here. You want to tackle this last one, or I'm looking at the
Yeah, one
clock,
left.
it's after
1 left, we
10.
made him wait.
Yeah.
Probably not enough.
Mr. Chair, I'll add one thing before you make your decision.
Thank you.
I don't believe I have any agenda items for the January meeting, so if you do defer this to continue it, we would have the meeting for this item and this item exclusively. So if you'd like to avoid having a January meeting,
Well,
We've had him here wait. We should go.
But-
He's waited.
I'm ready.
We're ready.
okay, you want to continue, okay. And under G, public hearing, PZC 043-2023, we have 3 requests by the Pradap Nayak regarding the property located at 246 North Washington in Westmont for the following. First is a zoning ordinance request to the required, a variance request to the required lot width in the R3 Single Family Detached Residence District. Second, a zoning ordinance variance request to the required lot area in the R3 Single Family Detached Residential District. And third, the zoning ordinance variance request to the required front yard setback in the R3 Single Family Detached Residence District. Good evening, sir.
Thank you for the opportunity to see you, sir, and considering my request. My name is Pradeep Nayak, and I'm a engineer, electrical engineer, and also certified public accountant. And today I'm here, as you see that for the 3 variances, in 1990s, I won this 120 by 125 feet lot, and I subdivided it into two, and then
Can
I
you speak up,
built-
sir?
Then I built on on 240 North Washington, and then I want to, at that time, because approved without any variances request or any variance approval. Somehow the city gave us the permit to build home. And we sold it now, we want to make, I came to learn that I need to apply for the variance and get that approved so that it can be buildable lot and subsequently build home. That's the purpose of living here. And it looks that most of the lot width-wise, most of the lots in Westmont is 50 by 135, 140, 150. And my front is 60 feet wide and back is 60 feet wide. So I'm asking for a lot width variance because the Planning Zoning Commission staff determined it is 55 feet. I'm asking, which is in the general norm of the locality, of a neighborhood. So that is one. And two, regarding the to the area, I see that most of the areas, I have given some examples, and a lot of them are, the one that I built the house and I was given permission to build was 7,005 square foot, and this one is 7,069 square foot. This lot is actually bigger than the one I built. But I did not know that nowadays you require me to apply for variance, so I'm here. And the third one is the setback. The one I built house on the 240 North Washington Street, which is the first one south of my present one I'm asking for, has got a 26 feet front setback. So that will match the neighborhood. So all of these three variances I'm requesting are within the limits and the norm of the locality.
Thank you. Staff comments?
Thank you, Chair. So the property we're looking at is, the address is 246 North Washington. Property to the south is 240 North Washington, and the property to the north is 250 North Washington. This particular property is located just north of Naperville Road and Washington Street. The site, as he noted, has an area of 7,069 square feet with a width of approximately 55 feet.
Could you put that on the screen, please?
Oh, Dennis, can you put the projector on? Thank you. So I can show you at least. This is the property to the south, 240. This is 250. This is 246, the one we're talking about, highlighted in blue. So the site, as you can see, also contains a portion of a fence that connects to the property to the north at 250 North Washington. That fence is largely within an easement, a utility and drainage easement as well, and was likely constructed around 1987 based on aerial imagery. And staff has advised the petitioner to reach out to the property owner regarding what to do with the fence if approved. So 246 North Washington Street was actually never properly subdivided off of 240 North Washington Street, the property to the south. The properties were changed to, in 1988, an assessment plat called Tarullo's Assessment Plat was recorded between 246 North Washington and 240 North Washington, and which created two separate pins. I'm going to go a little bit into the difference between a pin and a lot. So I'm sure we've gone over this before, but I want to make sure we know the difference. So parcels are largely tracts of land that are for taxing purposes through the county. They're identified with pins, which are parcel identification numbers. And most owners can go to the DuPage County and get plats recorded for assessment purposes. And then lots, on the other hand, are what we see here with proper subdivisions. And they're recognized through the municipalities, and these properties are, at that point, given the permission to become buildable. So many times, the two are one and the same when we go through subdivisions, pins in the subdivision itself. But we have a lot of older underlying lots throughout the village that have a single lot with multiple pins under it, or vice versa. So in the case of 246 and 240 North Washington, as I said, the properties were never subdivided into lots properly. The property to the south at 240 North Washington did obtain building permits for a single-family home that is now constructed there by utilizing the assessment plat when submitting for permits in 1990. Using the Tarullo assessment plat. Now, for the case of this property at 246 North Washington, for it to be considered what we call buildable, or to get permits to become buildable, variances must be secured for the lot area and lot width, as we've talked about before. The first variance to a lot width is required due to the property having a substandard lot width of, as Mr. Nyack noted, 55 feet. Where 60 feet is required in this R3 district. You may notice on the plat it says 60 feet at the angle, but we measure it perpendicular. That's why that width variance is required. The second variance request is for the lot area, for a substandard lot area. As I noted before, the lot area for this property is 7,069 square feet. We require 7,800 square feet for the R3 single-family district. And then in addition to those two required variances for the lot to become buildable, the petitioner is also requesting a variance to the front yard setback of 35 feet, where 26 feet to allow permitted encroachment of a single-family home. The reason he needs the setback is that the garage encroaches farther than the primary structure. We have allowances for the R3 district where if the garage is set back 5 feet, I believe, and the house can be set to match the neighboring property up to 25 feet. But in this case, because the garage is in front, that allowment is not considered in this case. So that's why the third variance is being requested. The petitioner did provide a plat of survey for the property, and then also provided a footprint of where the house would go with measurements and further notes. And I'm open to any clarifying questions from the commission.
Thank you. Is there anyone from the public who'd like to testify? Good evening, sir.
Good evening. Good evening, Commissioners. Long night. Apologize, I'll keep it short. Tom Boyser, 250 North Washington. I live just to the north of this.
Are you this one?
Yep.
Make sure I can see it.
This one right here. Question is utility easement. Do we have that marked out on the plat?
Yeah, so I have the plat for, let me make sure it's the right one. This is the plat of 246. This should also be in your staff report. So it is the 20-foot easement.
20-foot easement. So if you put the other one back up there. You're roughly looking at this area right here?
Correct.
Unbuildable?
We have certain structures that are permitted in easements.
Not foundations?
Correct. So some structures are not, such as primary structures and some accessory structures as well.
And you have a plan of what he's going to put on there?
Yes, it is available. It's in the staff report. I can put it on screen. So highlighted in red is that garage, and then this portion is the house. You can come up and look too, you can't see.
So he's right on it then, right on the edge of the 20-foot easement?
Correct.
So I'm assuming that I'll have to get Downers Grove Sanitary District and ComEd approval for that as well. So that's out of your guys' hands.
That would be with, for utilities, and that would be through permitting, yeah.
Right. Other than that,
Approval for what? What would you be requesting approval for on?
if he's going to be encroaching on their easement, I'm assuming that,
We're not including the.
no,
The permanent structure of the house and the garage, all that won't be, nothing on the easement.
a foot outside of the easement.
So I think the plan is for driveway on the easement, which you said allows for.
Yeah.
No, I don't think.
No, we got a, testimony has to
Either
be
way,
at the podium.
one way or another, ComEd and Sanitary District's going to get involved. Whoever's got the easements there, they're going to get involved. They'll deal with.
So
Have you gentlemen been in contact with each other?
No. I haven't heard them. Secondly is going to be, obviously, we talked about it in the first one, stormwater issue. Our French drain ain't going to work there. Just letting you know. But you will get water. Even right now, with all the improvements on Chicago Avenue, or Naperville Road,
Yeah, down south.
you're going to get water rolling right through there, and you're going to get water rolling right through there. Well, French drain in the back of that's not going to help.
For clarification, your fence on the south side of your house is what we see on the south end, the south side of that easement. So that fence would have to come down. The property line is actually,
That's why I've never redone the fence.
yeah.
Yeah, I believe the fence, as I noted, is
So the property line is actually 20 feet
past that fence.
or
Yeah,
half?
so if you look at,
Oh, in the middle of the easement.
this is the fence.
You need to zoom out.
Sorry.
You can read it if you want.
The fence is right here. This is the 20 feet.
Yes.
And is that the property line?
The red line is not the property line, the red line is the fence that's currently there. The blue line right here is that property
Okay,
line.
all right. So there's that much encroachment. Anything else, sir?
Not at this time.
Thank you. Good evening, sir.
Hi, my name is Marcelo Jaco.
Oh, to the microphone.
Marcelo Jaco here. Thank you for hearing us. I own the property on 240 North Washington Street. I don't have any issues with the request for the variance. The one question I would have, and I'm not sure if it's a appropriate question for this panel or not, but there is a light post in the front here. I don't know if that's, that needs to be removed for the property to be built.
There's light, what?
There's a light post, like a ComEd light post in there.
It's likely with the utility easement, but that would likely be worked out in permitting with our requirements for that easement if they wanted to remove it, which I doubt he does, based on his site plan.
So I'm unclear, is the plan to remove it or not?
I don't know. That would be done at permitting when he submits for building permits.
Okay.
If he's proposing that, and he'd have to work it out with our engineer.
Is that the pole in this?
I believe that is the one he's talking about, yeah. The one, it likely is ComEd there through that utility easement. I don't believe the site plan showed any improvements there.
Is there another light pole in front of your house? It's just this one other, okay, thank you.
And I think there's a light pole between my house and the property, which is Welch's Bar.
Welch's?
Yeah. Right here. So they'll be on Welch's, in front of Welch's property, pretty much.
Okay,
So,
thank you.
So if it's okay, I just want to, this is the way I look at this when I am trying to understand what the request is. So when you measure perpendicular the width, it's 55 feet. So there's a 20-foot easement on the north side. So that means what's our buildable area? So it takes 55 down to 35. I'm sure my math won't be perfect this late at night. And then on the south side, the 240, there'd be a required 6-foot easement. So that gives you 29 feet of buildable width to build a house. Now, the one thing I do caution is things that are not allowed to encroach into the either side are things like window wells. And sometimes you forget about that when you go to design the house, but window wells can't go into those easements either. So it means that within the 29 feet of width, you have to fit the house, and if you have window wells, they got to go on the front or the rear of the property because you can't put them on the side. So just, I wanted to say that so that you understand why there is a request for a lot width variance. It's because there's not a lot of buildable area that's there. Now, you have, in the past, approved lots that are only 50 feet wide, and in those cases, usually that's a 6-foot setback, so 50, 40, that's a 38-foot width. So in comparison, some of our narrow lots can have 38 feet of width, and the request that's before us here is 29 feet of width. So it's nice to have a little comparable understanding.
And sir, does that meet with your, the plans for your?
I have built a lot of homes.
Please to the microphone, but.
I have been a small builder. I have built homes, many of them. Yes, that meets my need.
So 29 feet meets with your,
Did you say 29 feet?
What he's saying, 29 feet he's talking about.
we're saying the width, the allowable width of the house would be.
Yeah, okay, that's what I gave you on the print.
Correct, yes.
Yeah, that's what I given on the print, yes.
All right.
Yes, sir.
Thank you for that clarification. So, anyone else from the public? Okay, we'll close that public hearing and go to the commissioners.
Thank you for the presentation. I have no comments, and for everyone else's comments, thank you as well. I have no comments.
All right. Commissioner Lavoy.
Just geometrically, it's challenging for having that size of a, going through this process to have that, only the 29 feet buildable area. But that's not for me to say, but anyway, I think based on testimony that the neighboring property owners are in agreement with the proposal, and I would not have any objection.
Thank you. Commissioner Peterson?
I have no questions or comments.
I see.
Thank you.
Commissioner Thomas?
No comment.
Well, my comment is, it's a small lot, but it appears that within the variances that it can be done, and I guess I have no serious objection to it. So there's no further discussion. The chair would entertain a motion to approve the under PZC 043-2023, Mr. Nayak's request for a zoning ordinance variance request to the required lot width in the R3 single-family detached residence district.
Motion, Scales.
A motion to approve Scales.
Second, Peterson.
Second, Peterson. Discussion? No more? Roll call, please.
Okay. Mr. Lavoy?
Yes.
Thomas says yes. Scales?
Yes.
Peterson?
Yes.
Chairman Carmichael?
Yes. Second, a zoning ordinance variance request to the required lot area in the R3 single-family detached residence district. Do I have a motion to approve?
Motion, Scales.
Second, Peterson.
Copy motion and second. Discussion. Roll call.
Mr. Lavoy?
Yes.
Thomas is yes. Scales?
Yes.
Peterson?
Yes?
Chairman Carmichael?
Yes. And thirdly, a zoning ordinance variance request to the required front yard setback in the R3 Single Family Detached Residence District.
Motion, Scales.
Second, Peterson?
Motion to approve and second. Discussion on the item. Seeing none, roll call.
Mr. Lavoy?
Yes.
Thomas is yes. Scales?
Yes.
Peterson?
Yes?
Chairman Carmichael?
Yes. Okay, Mr. Nyack, there you have it, our approval. And the staff will notify you when you're scheduled to appear before the, yes. And gentlemen, thank you for coming and addressing us as well.
Thank you so much. So the meeting
I will contact you with the date. Thank you. We'll see. It depends on the agenda. So I'll reach out to you.
Okay, thank you.
No problem.
Thanks again to Scott. He really, and the lawyer, are really the attorney, they worked a lot on this project to make it happen. Thank you very much.
Wow. Good night. Okay, next item is open forum. Under Chapter 2, Section 266 of the Westmont Code of Ordinances, the public comment rules and procedures are set forth. Public comment is allowed for matters of public concern that are not on the agenda. Public comment is limited 3 minutes per speaker. Do we have anyone who would like to address the board on any issue not on the agenda? Seeing none, we'll move on to miscellaneous. Does anyone have any comments before we move for adjournment? Scott, you were looking like you
I
wanted
was just
to.
going to say next PDC date.
Well, so the planning and zoning in January is not yet canceled, but as of this moment, I don't have any agenda items. There are a few more days for cases to come in, so it is likely that it will be canceled.
Okay. Does anyone else have anything? Chris?
I just want to, on behalf of the commission here, thoughts and prayers out for Wallace Van Buren.
Thank you.
I didn't hear what he said.
He said thoughts and prayers for Wally Van Buren. And if no one else has anything else, I'd wish everyone happy holidays and a new year, and I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion, Scales.
Have a second?
Second, Peter.
All in favor, raise your right hand.
All right.
Oh, you said aye.
Here, take this.
This meeting is adjourned. Thank